As Nangong Shui waved his white robe, a white mist appeared in the sky. He slowly said, "If my divination wasn't wrong, the summoner to be born soon will bring about a double-sided effect on the Zhou dynasty." "What is a two-sided effect?" Zhou Batian asked. "Enemy or friend? This choice depends entirely on that summoner. If he is a friend of Zhou dynasty will step up to a higher level. However, once he becomes an enemy, it will be the end of the Zhou dynasty." "You mean, once he chooses to be our enemy, the Zhou dynasty will be destroyed?" Yunqi was somewhat shocked. The country would be destroyed? This time, not only Zhou Batian changed his face, but all the courtiers present instantaneously showed a look of fear. At this time, some image began to emerge in the white fog in the sky, and people could not help but stare at the gradually clear image in the middle of the sky with nervousness. This was a matter of unification or destruction of the country in the future. In any case, they must draw the summoner over to their side. Otherwise, they could only destroy him. But when Yun Qi, who stood in front of the crowd, saw clearly the image in the white fog, his eyes widened in surprise suddenly. The House of Yun? How was this possible? So the summoner was actually a people from Yun family? Who was it? In his mind, there seemed to be no proper one. After all, it was extremely difficult to be a summoner. Nevertheless, before Yun Qi recovered from the shock and suspicion, all the fervent view, including Zhou Batian's, fell on him. "Old General Yun, it seems that there will be a happy event in your house in the near future. Yes, we're not sure about other families, but it's definitely a friend if the summoner is born in Yun family." "That's right. Yun family is the first military family of the Zhou dynasty. It's always righteous, selfless, and loyal to the empire. If the summoner comes from Yun family, it would be absolutely lucky for the Zhou dynasty." "I agree." In the hall, when people saw the gate of Yun house in the image of white fog, they were relieved and praised Yun family with great flattery. Of course, many people were jealous. However, in the face of those obsequious ministers, Yun Qi did not feel any slightest joy. Hundreds of years ago, there had been a summoner born in Yun family. This time, predicted by Imperial Preceptor, there would be a summoner in Yun family, but it was unsure whether it would be a blessing or a curse. "Old Yun, it seems that I should go to Yun house more often when I am available, haha." A touch of indescribable emotion flashed across Zhou Batian's eyes as he burst out laughter on the spot. With the forthcoming summoner of Yun family, the unification is just around the corner. "Congratulations, Your Majesty." When an old minister finished his words, the other ministers present immediately congratulated together loudly and kneeled down to Zhou Batian. Only Nangong Shui and Yun Qi stood still. This was a world respecting strong men. As long as one was strong enough, he didn't need to kowtow to the emperor. This was a privilege of the strong men. Therefore, it was normal that Nangong Shui and Yun Qi didn't kneel. "Well, stand up then. I learned that many descendants, including 4 girls from Yun family, from ministers participated in today's hunting competition. You accompany me to watch it." After a while, a group of ministers went out of the hall with the emperor and headed for the evil beast forest. Yun Qi did not immediately follow them. He turned to look at Nangong Shui, who wore a gentle smile. "Imperial Preceptor, make it clear if you have something to tell me." A smile flashed across the wise eyes of Nangong Shui. "Since you have such keen outsight, I believe I have nothing to worry about." "What do you mean?" Yun Qi could not understand what he meant. "Be kind to your 9 granddaughters, because the summoner will be one of them, which will also determine the future of your family." "My granddaughters?" Yun Qi's heart trembled. But soon, he frowned as he thought of one possibility. And this possibility actually made him feel a little scared. Nangong Shui casually glanced at some corner of the hall, and then his lips slightly raised. He slowly turned away with no more words. The main palace of imperial harems. On the magnificent chair was sitting a beautiful woman in her early 30s. Her golden gown set off her noble elegance. She held the cup, gracefully took off the lid, and slowly tasted the fragrant tea. Even the fact that an assassin dressed in black entered didn't disturb her at all. After quite a while, she put down her cup and raised her eyes in a casual way. "What did you learn?" According to the divination of Imperial Preceptor, there will soon be a summoner in the Zhou dynasty, and that summoner will be one of the 9 girls in Yun family. The assassin in black murmured his report. Hearing these words, she frowned. A touch of darkness and coldness crossed her beautiful eyes in an instant. Didn't you hear which of the 9 girls will be the summoner? The assassin shook his head. No, Imperial Preceptor didn't point the name out. He only reported to the emperor and ministers that the summoner is from Yun family, but secretly told Yun Qi that the summoner is one of Yun's 9 granddaughters. 9 granddaughters? So, that woman's daughter was included? The woman's eyes grew gloomier. A gloomy breath emanated from her body, and her beautiful face was somewhat fierce. Last time you reported that 8 assassins had been killed, and it was done by your predecessor top assassin, Feng Xing? She said in a very soft voice, but the assassin kneeled on the ground, shivering all over. Yes. Crash. A cloud of black fog rose, as her slender and white hand grasped the air. The seat next to the assassin was pinched to pieces for no reason. The weird force made the assassin's face pale, and his heart trembled fiercely. I'm incompetent. Punish me, my queen. His voice was quivering with fear. The woman's eyes were narrowed, while the black pupils changed slowly into purple, became a straight line and seemed extremely bloodthirsty and ferocious. If I punish you, I'm afraid you couldn't get out of here alive. Thank you for your kindness, my queen. Go back and tell your master. Bring Feng Xing into the palace for me, whatever you do. As soon as the soft words were said, she waved her hand and the broken chair beside assassin caught black fire. In a few seconds, there was no residue left after a light wind blew. The assassin quivered and hurried away respectfully with fright. Deep in the evil beast forest, this area belonged to the range of advanced evil beasts. Just as Long Qingxia said, she really needed a lot of physical strength to get out of this area of evil beast forest. Just like now, as soon as they came in the forest, they were surrounded by a group of 4th-rank fire wolves. Ferocious green light shined in their gloomy eyes in the dark forest. Their bodies were red and their fangs were sharp. The surrounding air temperature soared as the wolves howled and threw flames out of their tails. As soon as these wolves appeared, the Dragon Ascension scroll in her mind had given her information. 4th-rank firewolf lived in groups, with fire property, strong offensive force, and high agility, and its special ability was fire attack. Evil beasts were divided into 9 ranks. The evil beasts above 6th rank owned wisdom, so the evil beasts above 6th rank were high-rank evil beasts. After breaking through the 9th rank, the evil beasts could transform into human form. Of course, it was far more difficult to break through ranks for evil beasts compared with humans. However, the attack power of evil beasts was innumerable times stronger than that of humans of the same rank. Up to now, the evil beasts over the 9th rank hadn't been found in Shenzhou continent. It's 4th-rank firewolf. If you can't cope with it, hide behind me. Looking at the fire wolves that surrounded them, Long Qingxia took a step forward, fondled A1, his silver hair, and put on a bloodthirsty smile. Thank you, but I've never had the habit of hiding behind others. Yunwu also lifted the lip corner, came up and stood with him side by side. It was not difficult to realize the good mood of Long Qingxia. You're really the girl I like. You're so bold that I can't control my love again. Too much nonsense. Yunwu rolled her eyes upwards. Suddenly, a wisp of purplish-red battle spirit rose. With Yunwu's thought, a sword showed up in her hands. I will break through from the right side, leaving the left and middle parts to you. As the indifferent words were finished, she quickly attacked the wolves with the sword, which was condensed by fighting spirit. Will you reward me after breaking through the siege? Long Qingxia asked with a charming smile. The next second, a strong blue light came out of Long Qingxia. He gripped backhand a long sword with blue light and rushed into the wolves with the remnant shadow still in situ. Howling. The angry wolves roared. Their roars spread all over the deep forest and startled countless birds. Flame, wolf roar, sword light, fighting spirit mingled with each other at this moment. This scene would absolutely startle the other people if they saw this. It was not easy to deal with the 4th-rank wolves, even for a group of 5th-rank guards. But now, There were only two people. This battle was not only a battle of strength, but also one testing the courage to fight desperately. There was no tacit understanding between them at first, but in the course of fighting, they quickly developed a unique tacit understanding. Unconsciously, they trusted each other and even give their back to each other for protection. When the battle was over, the surrounding soil had been dyed red and bloody smell diffused. Smelling the blood, other evil beasts in the forest itched for action. Go! Yunwu clenched the blood-stained sword in hand, stepped on the corpses of the fire wolves, and walked in the direction of the periphery. Her clothes were stained with a lot of blood. Although most of them were the blood of fire wolves, she also got hurt by the claws of wolves. Are you okay? Would you like to find a place to clean your wounds and apply the medicine, by the way? Long Qingxia's sword had vanished in the air, and he asked Yunwu. His white clothes were also stained with blood, but compared with Yunwu, he just got a few bloodstains by accident. No, we should leave here first. Yunwu inexplicably had a bad feeling in her heart. She felt that some kind of danger was approaching. Not long after Yunwu and Long Qingxia left, two figures in black robes flew over from the depths of the mountains. The smell of blood attracted the evil beasts in the forest, and the corpses of fire wolves were torn and eaten by them. And the coming two figures stood in the air. When they observed the situation on the ground with their gloomy eyes, they soon frowned. Somebody hunted fire wolves in this inner forest, one black-robed man said with dignity in his old voice. According to the tracks, it's two people. One should just break through the initial stage of the 5th rank with fire attribute. But I can't figure out the cultivation of another one. Another black-robed man squinted his gloomy eyes as a touch of homicidal intent flashed across his eyes. If Yunwu heard this, she would break out into a cold sweat. From the messy scene on the ground, they could know how many people was here, and one of them had the strength of the 5th level. What was more, the spot had already been destroyed by other beasts. It took only a glance to get all the information. How powerful were the two black-robed men? The man with the old voice also had a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. This place is near the cliff of the Royal Secret Tunnel, and the treasure guardian died on the cliff, so it seems that the two people are bound to have some relationship with the treasure theft. They must have not gone far yet. Let's look for them separately. As the voice fell, the two figures suddenly turned into two shadows and disappeared separately. Near the boundary of Evil Beast Forest, Yunwu was like a gust of wind. She moved quickly, hiding her breath, along the cliff and towards the periphery of the forest. She felt a terrible sense of crisis, and the dangerous feeling of being locked upon by a venomous snake did not disappear until she was near the boundary of the forest. What was wrong? Why did she suddenly have this strange feeling? She was full of doubts, but no matter how hard she tried to find out the reason, she seemed to be at a loss. Maybe that was intuition. Long time later, when this intuition appeared several times, Yunwu got this radar-like intuition because of her birth. Of course, this was another story. My girl, I have something to do. Since boundary of the forest is just in front of you, I have to stop accompanying you here and I will come to see you in my convenient time. Long Qingxia, who followed Yunwu, suddenly stopped and said. Yunwu turned her head and looked at him doubtfully. Who on earth are you? Every time, he appeared at her crisis and then disappeared without trace. She knew nothing about him. Long Qingxia smiled evilly and looked at Yunwu with dark eyes. One day you will know me, and when that day comes, you shall fall in love with me. Hearing this, Yunwu frowned. It was obvious that she felt uncomfortable to his words. Long Qingxia reached out and touched her head. His magnetic voice turned to a doting tone. Don't show it so obviously that you don't like me. It will hurt my heart, but... Speaking of this, he paused. The next moment, Yunwu seemed to see a dash of arrogance in his dark eyes. Believe me, in this world, only I can match you, and only you can be with me. What an arrogant tone it was. Yunwu got stunned and felt a tremor in her heart. Where on earth did his confidence come from? How could he just make such a domineering declaration so proudly with such certainty? I've searched all over the forest and haven't found you. It turns out that this trash is hiding in this remote corner. Shortly after Yunwu reached the periphery of the forest, a sharp voice came. Turning around, she saw Yun Qing'er and Yun Lingshui coming toward her. My third sister, look, this trash is covered with blood. Is she hurt seriously? Yun Qing'er stared at Yun Wu teasingly. I heard that at the beginning of the game, you rushed into the woods. So this trash wants to win the game? Yun Lingshui's eyes were cold, but her tone was mocking. Third sister, we have not taught this bitch a good lesson for a long time, so that she has forgotten what is reality. Hearing Yun Qing'er's words, Yun Lingshui sneered. What are you waiting for? As soon as the voice fell, Yun Lingshui drew out a long whip from her waist. She threw the whip at Yun Wu fiercely with a look of contempt and disgust. The look in Yun Wu's eyes turned cold. Yun Qi asked her to show mercy to them, but they came to her first and took the initiative to trouble her. Moving quietly, Yun Wu took the whip with a backhand. She said coldly, "It seems that you really want to die." Yun Lingshua mocked and sneered, "Since you this trash dare talk to me in such a tone, it seems that it is you that want to die." Yellow fighting spirit raised from Yun Lingshui. She intended to withdraw her whip out of the hand of Yun Wu with much strength, but she couldn't. Yun Lingshui frowned, as a trace of doubt flashed across her eyes. She gave another try, but she found that she was still unable to pull back the whip with all her energy. How was that possible? When Yun Qing'er saw this, she also frowned and said, "What are you doing, third sister? There's no need to be merciful to this trash. Otherwise, sooner or later, she'll ride roughshod over us." When Yun Lingshui saw that Yun Qing'er only made some irresponsible remarks beside, a touch of rage raised in her heart. Cut the crap. Why are you standing there still? Yun Qing'er's eyes was gloomy, and she felt dissatisfied with the commanding tone of Yun Lingshui. In fact, she had promoted to the second level of cultivation, and Yun Lingshui was still in midterm of first level. How could Yun Lingshui command her? But this was not the time to break up with Yun Lingshui. After pulling out her whip, Yun Qing'er threw it straight at Yun Wu with a wisp of fighting spirit. Bang! A deep mark left on the ground. Yun Wu avoided the hit, but Yun Qing'er did not see how Yun Wu did it clearly. Yun Qing'er was angry. "You this trash, I haven't settled the score that you ate my tier 2 pill last time. Today, I'll settle all the scores." Yun Qing'er waved the whip fiercely like a snake. Yun Wu dodged without haste, but a touch of coldness flashed across her eyes. "Third sister, don't you intend to explain this matter? Don't you feel shame to make me a scapegoat of you?" Yun Lingshui was stunned, but soon she got angry. "You this trash dare to slander me. A few days ago, Grandpa supported you. But today, I will give up my surname if I couldn't make you cry." Yun Lingshui wanted the tier 2 elemental wind pill originally, but she lost to Yun Qing'er in the bid. As a daughter of lineal descent in Yun family, how could she be willing to lose? So she let people steal it from Yun Qing'er. Only her mother knew about this thing. How could Yun Wu know it? A killing intention rose in Yun Lingshui's heart. This thing must not be known to others. Otherwise, how could she face others proudly? This was a kind of human inferiority. She not only was selfish, but also liked bullying the weak. Feeling her whip could not be pulled back, Yun Lingshui dropped it then. Her yellow fighting spirit rose. Her feet moved, and she hatefully rushed to stab Yun Wu with a dagger in her hand. Yun Lingshui really wants to kill me? Yun Wu, with anger flickering in her eyes, avoided the attack quickly. By backhand, the whip on her hand fiercely swept towards Yun Lingshui. Instantly, the whip was wrapped around the neck of Yun Lingshui and tied it tightly. The astonishment flashed across Yun Lingshui's eyes. With a cold humph, Yun Wu suddenly lifted the long whip. Yun Lingshui, who was tied by the whip around the neck, was thrown out in an instant. Ah! The scream arose, with a bump. Yun Lingshui directly hit a tree not far away. With a painful humph, she fainted. The crisp cracking made it clear that Yun Lingshui broke 2 ribs at least. Remember, from now on, you will no longer one member of Yun family. There was a hint of satire in her cold voice. At this time, Yun Wu turned her head and looked at Yun Qing'er coldly. It's your turn. Yun Qing'er's eyes were filled with astonishment. How could she possibly throw away a mid-first level person? She was just a trash without any fighting spirit. How? You, this trash. Where did you steal martial arts from? Yun Qing'er's eyes were cold and she waved her whip swiftly toward Yunwu. You bitch, you are really addicted to stealing. You stole not only my pill, but also other people's martial arts. If I do not teach you a lesson today, you won't know what the rules of Yun family. The whip came near. Rage flickered in Yunwu's eyes. Did she have to steal other people's martial arts? It seemed that Yun Qing'er wanted to gain mastery by striking first. But Yunwu wouldn't allow herself to be thrown into passivity. Not before, nor in the future. Since you are so fond of talking about Yun's rules, then I'll let you know the rules. With a cold expression on the face, Yunwu moved her feet. At the same time, the whip in her hand quickly and severely was whipped at Yun Qing'er. Thwack, she cracked her whip. This whip not only broke Yun Qing'er's flesh in an instant, but also pulled her away with ferocious force. Ah! Yun Qing'er's face was pale as she rolled back. She aroused her fighting spirit and tried to resist the beating. However, the whip penetrated her defense of fighting spirit and directly attacked her body. Bloodstains appeared on her body one by one. Suddenly, Yunwu seemed to perceive that a large number of people in the distance were chasing an evil beast, coming towards them. I just give you a little warning this time. Yunwu mocked and sneered, and then the whip stopped. Yun Qing'er's eyes were full of horror. She stared at Yunwu grimly. Originally, she wanted to curse, but her following words were stopped upon Yunwu's cold purple eyes. Purple eyes? A gush of fear rose from the bottom of Yun Qing'er's heart, and it sent a chill down her spine. What was the matter? In the blink of an eye, the strange purple eyes of Yunwu restored to black as if the purple eyes Yun Qing'er just saw was her illusion. How could this happen? Was it really her illusion? Yun Qing'er blinked her eyes and tried hard to see the eyes of Yunwu again. Yunwu slowly raised the lip corner and inexplicably smiled. Sixth sister, it's time for you to protect us. What did her words mean? Just when Yun Qing'er was in confusion, Yunwu came forward and pulled Yun Qing'er up from the ground. The whip was handed to Yun Qing'er. Then, Yunwu pretended to be weak on purpose and immediately fainted on the ground. Yun Qing'er didn't figure out what was going on. Suddenly, a roar of tigers came behind Yun Qing'er. Roar. The roar shocked the earth. Yun Qing'er turned around subconsciously, but the next moment, she was almost scared to urination. A third-level golden spot tiger. Why was there a third-level evil beast on the periphery of the forest? She had just reached the second level. How could she defeat a third-level evil beast? The golden spot tiger galloped like it was being chased by something. Seeing Yun Qing'er was on its way, the tiger roared and opened its big mouth with sharp fangs as if trying to tear her apart. As the big mouth approached her, Yun Qing'er's face was pale white and her legs were shivering like noodles. She instinctively backed up quickly and wanted to run away, but she was stumbled by the body of Yunwu, who fainted beside suddenly. At the moment of falling, Yun Qing'er gritted her teeth angrily. That trash really gets me into trouble this time. At that moment, however, a cold light flashed before her eyes. When she fixed her eyes on it, a dagger had been inserted into the head of the tiger already. That dagger belonged to Yun Lingshui, who wanted to pierce Yunwu with it. Yun Qing'er didn't know how this happened. She just saw that tiger raised its head and roared when the dagger pierced its head. Its huge body instantly fell toward her. Yun Qing'er quickly dodged. To ensure own safety, Yun Qing'er waved the whip in her hand and severely attacked the head of the golden spot tiger, which was still breathing. This scene was seen by the coming group. Wow! Those people gave a sharp intake of breath when they saw the golden spot tiger fell down upon the attack from Yun Qing'er. At this point, Yun Qing'er seemed to notice the people present. The long whip stained with blood was still held in her hand. She was stunned, looking at Zhou Tianyu, who was walking slowly towards her. Are you all right, Qing'er? The noble black eyes were stained with a touch of gentleness. Coupled with his handsome face and noble status, his charm could not be resisted by any women present. Yun Qing'er took a deep breath and slowed down her chaotic heartbeat. Your Highness, I'm all right. It's just a small injury. The bloodstains on her body made those people mistake that she had fought with the golden spot tiger fiercely. Qinger. A voice with dignity arose. Yun Qi came from the distance, walking fast forward her. Grandpa? Seeing Yun Qi, Yun Qinger was stunned. Why did Grandpa come? Yun Qi came over and his sharp eyes swept around. When he saw the unconscious Yun Wu next to the body of the golden spot tiger, a dark current flashed across his eyes. What's the matter? He inquired in a deep voice. Grandpa, However, before Yun Qinger answered, other ministers who followed Zhou Batian slowly came up. When the others saw Zhou Batian, they were somewhat surprised and knelt down to greet him. Zhou Batian waved his hand and laughed. Stand up. I heard that a 3-level evil beast ran out from the inner forest, so I came with ministers to see which lady is better in strength, but it seems that we are too late. Zhou Tianyu greeted Zhou Batian with a respectful smile and said, Father, as soon as we catch up the tiger, we saw it was killed by Miss Sixth of Yun family. Hearing his words, the ministers behind Zhou Batian gasped in surprise and fixed their eyes on Yun Qinger instantly. Their eyes were hot and full of inquiry. Would this lady be the summoner of Yun family in the divination of Imperial Preceptor? She must have something special since she could kill the 3rd-level golden spot tiger. Miss Yun, may I know what strength level you've reached now? An old minister asked in a slightly respectful tone. This surprised all the other ladies and several princes present. Why did the arrogant old guy ask the young generation in such a tone? Yun Qinger was uncomfortable under such stares. She immediately answered with nervousness and respect, My lord, I've just broken through to the early stage of the 2nd level. The early stage of 2nd level. The old minister raised his eyebrows and swept his eyes over Yun Qinger again, laughing kindly. Breaking through to the 2nd level at such a young age is really amazing. You have great potential. The meaning of the word, potential, could only be understood by the ministers present. When Yun Qinger heard his words, she regarded it as praise, so she could not help but secretly rejoice. Her mother had been asking her to keep a low profile and mask her nature. She could not help but feel proud and decided not to tell the truth in front of the emperor, ministers, and princes. Your Majesty, I think the Miss Sixth of Yun family must be the winner of this hunting contest. The old minister looked respectfully at Zhou Batian with a smile. Yes, the other ministers echoed his views together, without any doubt. Zhou Batian smiled and said nothing. His deep eyes swept around for a while. It seemed that he was looking for something. Yun Wu, who was lying beside the golden spot tiger, was secretly alarmed by Zhou Batian's keen vision. He might be aware of her abnormal status if she didn't use silver needles to control her weak breath. For a long time, Zhou Batian did not find anything unusual, and then he drew back his sight and fixed his eyes on Yun Qinger. Good. Well, this year's winner of the hunting competition is Miss Sixth of Yun family. Thank you for your grace. Hearing Zhou Batian's words, Yun Qinger was happy and immediately thanked the emperor for his kindness. Since the hunt is over, we should go back to the palace and let the young people play with each other. Yes, your majesty. A group of people left with momentum as it came. The young ladies and princes taking part in the hunt game were surprised by the sudden appearance of the emperor and the ministers. However, after that, the princes present all looked at Yun Qinger with fervent eyes. It was an honor that the emperor and all the ministers all admitted her power of killing the 3rd-level evil beast. If anyone could marry her, he would feel very dignified. Miss Yun, I wonder if you are free tomorrow? How about going to the lake together? Miss Yun. Suddenly, many princes came forward to invite Yun Qinger. Yun Qinger, however, turned her eyes to Zhou Tianyu. Her goal was to be the crown princess from the beginning to the end. Zhou Tianyu looked up proudly, but smiled gently. I also wonder if Qinger is free tomorrow? At this moment, Yun Qinger was extremely excited, and her eyes was full of pride. She enjoyed the envy of other girls, and slowly walked to Zhou Tianyu. With a shy nod, she answered, As long as your highness invite me, I'll be free at any time. It seemed that Yun Qinger never thought about who shot the dagger into the head of the golden spot tiger. At this time, she only indulged in the pleasure of being envied by other girls. No one present noticed the disappearance of Yun Wu and Yun Lingshui, who originally lay on the ground. In a luxurious carriage, Yun Qi stared at Yun Wu with strange eyes from the palace to the outside. He didn't blink all the way. It was unbearable. Grandpa, I know I'm pretty, but I have to tell you that I am not interested in old men. Yunwu glanced at Yunqi and said with a teasing coldness. Hearing this, Yunqi was choked and said, "The words said by you little girl always make me angry. That's because your gaze makes my flesh creep," Yunwu replied straightforward. Yunqi drew back his gaze then, but soon he grinned at her. To tell the truth, his wrinkled face was like a chrysanthemum when he was laughing, which really did not look good. Just come to the point quickly, Yunwu wanted to roll her eyes. The old man really knew how to challenge the limitation of her taste. Today, Imperial Preceptor has predicted that a summoner will be born in our Yun family. From the 9 girls, including you, Yunqi stared at her and said. Yunwu raised her eyebrows. The divination from Imperial Preceptor? She had memory of Imperial Preceptor of Zhou Dynasty. She also heard that his divination never was wrong. So he was known as the first prophet of God due to his ability of prediction. It seemed that her behavior in the forest profited Yunqinger by accident. Presumably, the emperors and ministers must think that the person who would become a summoner was Yunqinger. So what? Yunwu casually said. You little girl, do you think I don't know what you did in the forest? You really regard your grandpa as an old fool? If your grandpa hadn't covered up it for you in advance, do you think you could escape Zhou Baishan's sight by that means? Yunqi said angrily, but he deliberately suppressed his voice. In the carriage, Yun Lingshui, who was in a coma, was beside them. He covered up it for her? Yes, before the emperor's eyes fell on her. She seemed to feel a very gentle warm breath covering her body. She thought it was an illusion, but it turned out that it was from Yunqi, who helped her secretly. Suddenly, Yunwu's eyes darkened, as a sense of frustration hit her. Damn it, she was still too weak. With her present strength, she might only be able to resist some enemies. When she met a real master, she could only be slaughtered. Yunqi seemed to understand Yunwu's feeling when he saw Yunwu's clenched fists and lost expression. Girl, don't put too much pressure on yourself. As you've been strong enough to kill a 3rd-level evil beast with your strength in this age, you are pretty good. Pretty good? Yunwu grinned coldly and a chill flashed across her eyes. For the enemy who wants my life, I am no different from an ant. I have died once. Since God has given me the chance to rebirth, I will cherish my life and won't let anybody determine my fate. Speaking of this, Yunwu raised her eyes. She looked at Yunqi's shocked eyes and said coldly, So, don't judge me by my age and strength. It is just an excuse for keeping still. I don't want to be such a person. In the eyes of those who wanted her life, her current strength was not strong enough. She didn't need to give herself any excuses. She was really too weak, which was the truth. However, these words made Yunqi speechless. Died once? Did she mean the thing Yunqinger, and Yun Lingshui did to her last time? Or the time when she was in the forbidden area? Or the event that she was poisoned more than 10 years ago? Anyway, she had made it clear that the person who wanted her life must not be a big shot. Was that the reason why she hid her strength? Yunqi laughed happily after a while, with a trace of appreciation in his eyes. Girl, you are really different. You will certainly stand on the high position that everyone respects based on such belief. The old man knew very well that this girl was unusual. He didn't ask more as she showed her strong will. He just needed to understand her in his heart. And he knew that the day she presented her strength in front of him must be her strongest day, when she accepted him as her grandfather and accept the whole Yun family. Soon, they arrived at the door of Yun family. Grandpa, since I was so badly injured this time, shouldn't I need to lie quietly for a month or 2? Suddenly, Yunwu looked at Yunqi with a light smile and asked. Yunqi's eyes were full of laughter. This girl must want to go somewhere without being noticed. Was that a sign of trust in him? Give me a night, and I'll let Yunwu recover on bed in Ning Yard for 2 months. Yunwu laughed. For the first time, she felt that it was not bad to have such a helper. Yunqinger won the championship, so the life flower and rewards were sent to Yun House. For Yunwu, it was too easy to get all things in Yun family. She needed growing grass besides life flower. Long Qinxia told her that the growing grass was in the middle ridge of Evil Beast Forest at the intersection of the 3 kingdoms. She had checked continental map before and remembered the route. If the journey to Evil Beast Forest went smoothly, it would take at least a month or so to get back the growing grass. If she disappeared suddenly, it would inevitably arouse suspicion from the Empress and the Emperor. It was absolutely fool to put herself in the light. So she asked Yunqi to help. After one night, when Yunwu looked at a Yunwu exactly like her, she suddenly understood why Yunqi said that he needed a knight. He must make some efforts and use some special means to make this Yunwu. The next day, at daybreak, a small figure appeared quietly in the backyard of Yun house. Soon, the figure disappeared silently at the end of the street. Yunwu rode a horse in men's clothes and went out of the city as soon as city door opened. This horse was quick as Yunwu's wish. But Yunwu neglected that although she had learned to ride a horse in her previous life, she never really had a long journey by riding a horse. An hour later, she felt a sharp ache on buttocks, so she had to stop by the roadside. Damn it, I should buy a carriage. Yunwu rubbed her painful buttocks, frowning. In fact, she was rich enough to buy a flying beast since she had robbed the whole treasure house. But that was too high profile. She thought carriage was too slow. So she chose the beast horse. Beast horse was fast and low-key, but it really let her buttocks suffer. In the distance, there was a roar of beasts suddenly came with dust swirling in the air. Yunwu looked up to the dim dust. Two white unicorns pulling a luxury carriage came at a high speed and stopped in front of her in the twinkling of an eye. The dust blurred her eyes. At the same moment, her horse seemed to be shocked, roared, and ran away quickly. Oops. Bah. Yunwu wanted to chase her horse, but as soon as she opened mouth, she inhaled a lot of dust. In the blink of an eye, the horse had disappeared. There was no way for Yunwu to catch up with it. On the roadside, there was a luxurious carriage. The two white unicorns raised their heads proudly and snorted at Yunwu disdainfully. It showed a strong sense of contempt. Yunwu's mood suddenly became bad to the extreme. Yunwu put on a long face and walked up to the carriage on the roadside. You're so angry. Do you want to vent your anger to your husband? As soon as Yunwu approached the carriage, a charming, lazy voice came from it with a deep laugh. Carriage doors carved with exquisite totems were slowly opened. Long Qinxia lay gracefully on the soft couch in the spacious carriage. His white clothes drifting made him look like an immortal, and his enchanting silver hair, together with his handsome and evil face, brought him a kind of suffocating charm. Yunwu was stunned at that moment. After she recovered from her astonishment, a doubt appeared in the bottom of her eyes. No one knew except Yunqi that she would leave the capital city. Long Qingxie shouldn't be informed by Yunqi. Was he watching her all the time? Little thing, you have my blood in your body. It's easy for me to sense your position. Seeing Yunwu's doubts and cold eyes, Long Qingxie explained with an invisible laugh. His blood? Was this the uniqueness of sacred blood? Although Yunwu was familiar with the general history of the mainland, which introduced many things on the mainland, a lot of things were not recorded in the book. So, at this time, it was a normal reaction to have a feeling of incredulity. Get on. Inside the carriage, Long Qingxie waved his hand like summoning a puppy. However, on his evil face, he wore a charming smile that bewitched all living beings. The seduction of the smile let a person's heart beat faster. Yunwu frowned and thought, was this damn evil man using his psychedelic trick again? I have something important to do. I don't have time to play with you. Yunwu turned around and was ready to leave. Little thing, do you want me to hold you up? Come up. His light laughter was casual, but it had an undoubted hegemony and strength. Yunwu stopped, frowning. A cold light flashed across her eyes. Did this man really see her as an assistant? She didn't want to respond to him. However, just when Yunwu was about to leave, her waist was entangled by something suddenly. She had already been carried into the carriage and lay prone on Long Qingxie's chest before she knew it. You. As Yunwu opened her mouth, she was suddenly kissed by Long Qingxie on the red lips. Yunwu struggled with her eyes wide open, but her head was firmly held by a big hand. She couldn't resist this fiery and domineering kiss. He tied her hands behind her back with one hand, which tore the wound on her body. His kiss was hegemonic and powerful. It shocked Yunwu. Before Yunwu felt dizzy and blank in her brain. She bit Long Qingxie firmly. The smell of blood soon spread in their mouths. At this time, their lips were separated. Long Qingxie wiped the blood on his lips with his hand, and then he stared at Yunwu with his sexy eyes. You're really like a wild kitten. So I must use such means to settle you down? You are shameless. Yunwu glared at him, but in an instant, a touch of chagrin flashed across her eyes. Damn it. Why did she always get mad at this man and lose all her sense? His blood was not only holy blood, but also the strongest filter. In the eyes of men who laughed so enchantingly, Yunwu lost her consciousness in that instant. It was dark. In the carriage. It was comfortable. Yunwu stretched her body subconsciously when she woke up. The very relaxed comfort let her want to groan out loud. This feeling was like a sense of bizarre reincarnation. Immediately, an image flashed through her mind. She turned her head. Long Qingxie was still half lying on the soft couch on the other side of the carriage, holding his head with one hand and keeping his eyes closed. Beauty in couch? No, it should be a handsome man in couch. Very beautiful, very charming, very exciting. This man didn't need to use the psychedelic trick at all. He was the best filter himself. Whether a woman or a man would be attracted by him just after having a look at him. To be honest, if it wasn't the unforgettable betrayal she suffered in her previous life, she could hardly control her heart and would fall in love with him easily. When Yunwu was lost in thought, Long Qingxie's closed black eyes opened. His smiling eyes met Yunwu's starry ones. Am I handsome? Asked Long Qingxie unhurriedly. Yunwu was stunned. She hid her inner feelings for a moment and rolled her eyes towards him. Instead of responding to him, she asked, Where are we going? The carriage ran smooth and steady, but she occasionally felt the bumps brought by the galloping unicorns. Northern Beast Forest. Hearing this, Yunwu tilted her head and looked at Long Qingxie in surprise because that was the destination she was going to. Nobody knows growing grass except me. If you go alone, I'm afraid you will exceed your timeline. Long Qingxie wore an evil smile. Yunwu frowned. Indeed, she searched through all alien herbal books. There was no record of growing grass. Originally, she planned to go to Beast Forest and asked some local people about it. But he said only he knew growing grass. Was it a conspiracy? However, Yunwu found that the wound on her body left by the fire wolves had disappeared. There was no scar at all. What was going on? Was it because of Long Qingxie's blood? Yunwu couldn't help looking at Long Qingxie. Long Qingxie had sat up from the soft couch and looked at her with the evil smile. He hooked his finger at her and said, Come here. Yunwu's gratitude was replaced by depression at this moment. He really saw her as a puppy? Yunwu glanced at him, talked directly. Don't. However, before she talked more, the man opposite rushed at her and lay idle on her like a boneless person. Do you have a conscience? Your husband bled and consumed much energy for you. Why don't you be tender to me? In the magnetic voice, there was a pitiful tone, which touched her earlobe gently. Yunwu was stunned. To tell the truth, since she woke up in this strange world, Long Qingxie had done a lot for her, but he was really too annoying in behaviors and words. Even though she was grateful and wanted to be kind to him, she was annoyed by his behaviors and forgot to show her gratitude, like now. Lying prone on her wasn't something unbearable, but Long Qingxie rubbed her breast with his hands, nestling his head against her neck and seducing her by constantly blowing hot air around her neck and earlobe. Yunwu felt a shy heat on face, turned angry from embarrassment, and then pushed him hard away. But the man stuck to her again like gum. They repeated push and rush, so their gesture became more and more intimate, which also gave Long Qingxie more chances to have his hands all over Yunwu. The temperature in the carriage soared in an instant. Suddenly, Yunwu felt cool on the chest. Looking down, Yunwu became furious finally. Long Qingxie, don't go too far. Long Qingxie was kicked away by Yunwu. She was so angry that her chest heaved fiercely. She put on the clothes and immediately sat up from the soft couch. This guy was absolutely a pedophile. Long Qingxie's face was somewhat gloomy. There was a frightening cold glimmer in his deep eyes. He was unhappy being kicked away in the passion. However, Such emotions were quickly concealed by him. Even he was kicked off the couch, Long Qinxie still looked elegant. He sat cross-legged in an idle way, as if it was his natural temperament. He might be so graceful even when he killed people. Such a man, in fact, was the most terrible one. He would never let you see through him. Yunwu took a deep breath and stared at the man who slowly arose. She calmly said, Long Qinxie, as we go to Beast Forest together, I must make something clear. Long Qinxie raised the corners of the mouth and restored his enchanting expression. What's the matter? If you want to ask me not to touch you, then you don't have to say it. I'm your husband. For other things, it's up to me even you said yes or no. So what do you want to say? Yunwu was so depressed upon these words. What she wanted was rejected by him totally. What else could she say? Although he always helped her, he always made her depressed. Yunwu was really angry and annoyed, but she could do nothing to him because she was too weak in strength to win Long Qinxie. But she won't allow it to last long. Someday, she would make him suffer. This annoying, powerful, but attractive guy. The white unicorns ran faster than her horse. They only used 5 days to reach the destination while Yunwu had estimated the journey would take more than 10 days. Northern Beast Forest located in the border area of the northwest of Zhou Dynasty. Its area was vast and unmeasurable, and no one really went to the deepest part of the forest to measure it. However, people could imagine the size of the forest, which ran through the intersection of the 3 countries. There were towering shrubs of thousands of years old, dense and complex. Evil beasts were rampant in it. Its danger was definitely far beyond a normal beast forest. Even a warrior would not walk alone in it, unless he got the realm of a great warrior. So, almost all the people who went to Evil Beast Forest were in groups. Dragon Town was the entrance to the northern Evil Beast Forest, the only town within 500-meter radius. Generally, people who planned to enter the forest would take a night rest in this town to get some supplies ready. At the same time, some people who came alone from other places could also find some partners or groups in town. For a long time, though Dragon Town was a remote town, it was still a busy place for people to come and go. Is this hotel yours? In a luxury booth, Yunwu glanced at Long Qinxie, who was gracefully picking vegetables with chopsticks. As soon as they stopped at the inn gate, the manager greeted them respectfully in person. Not only were 2 best rooms prepared for them, but also the dining booth was the most luxurious one. Although, from the beginning to the end, the manager did not call Long Qinxie, Yunwu got something from his attitude. Long Qinxie put a hunk of meat into the bowl of Yunwu and smiled. If you want it, even if it is not mine, I will make it mine. What was the meaning of this answer? Yunwu wanted to roll her eyes. But these 5 days' company really made Yunwu fully know his character. The best way to deal with this cheeky man was to ignore him directly. Otherwise, too many questions would lead to too many mistakes, and she would be easily annoyed by his words. In the end, she would be mad at herself. At this moment, there was a hubbub outside. A loud, gruff, angry voice rose. Yunwu looked down from the window. An argument was putting up in the street full of vendors and pedestrians. A strong man with a beard was pulling an old woman's collar in a vicious manner and lifting her up. Many people gathered around after hearing the strong man's loud voice. Hand it to me at once, or I will tear you apart. The strong man with a dark face threatened the old woman with his big fist. The old woman was trembling. Her eyes were full of fear. Please be reasonable, sir. I have given you everything you want. What else do you want? Quit pretending. If you don't hand it to me right now, don't blame me for being rude. With a firm grip of the fist, his bones rattled. At this moment, a dirty little girl rushed over with tears. Jerk, let go of my mother. Let go of my mother. The strong man was impatient, so he lifted his foot and kicked the little girl away. Get away. If you provoke me, I will also beat you. The old woman cried and prayed for help from all around her. Help my poor girl. Help me, nevertheless. The cry for help had not yet fallen. The strong man with a sullen look slapped the old woman's face hard with a loud thwack. Do you think that they will save you? If you shout again, I will cut your tongue. With that, the strong man slapped the old woman fiercely again, which made her mouth bleed and her face swollen like steamed bread. She looked so pathetic. This finally led to the sympathy and discontent of all the people around. Little brother, you are too cruel to the poor girl and her mother? Show mercy. Don't go too far. Sitting on the second floor, Yunwoo looked at the scene without more expressions. Her eyes were still cold as frost, quiet as dead water. Long Qinxie glanced at the scene and then fixed his eyes on Yunwoo. He smiled at her indifferent expression and said, "Don't you think that mother and daughter below are worthy of sympathy? If you feel they are poor, you can go out and help them. Why do you ask me?" Yunwoo replied indifferently, "Please make your husband know your thought clearly." Long Qinxie gazed at her with a smile. Yunwoo rolled her eyes. A dwarf, a cheater. What else should I say? Dwarf? Long Qinxie did not understand this word. Nevertheless, her neat remark revealed the reality of the scene, and a touch of admiration crossed Long's eyes. "You little thing, have you really been in the back hill of Yun family for 15 years? All her actions and words were quite different from what he had investigated. If he hadn't personally confirmed she was the 9th lady of Yun family, he would doubt if she was real Yunwoo of Yun family." Yunwoo didn't want to make more remarks. Long Qinxie must have investigated her according to his words. Suddenly, there was a voice of tenderness outside. "How dare you bully the weak in public in daylight? Let her go at once. Otherwise, I won't be kind to you." As the delicate voice fell, the slender figure of a woman, holding a long sword, leaped into the air. The woman was about 17 or 18 years old, dressed in yellow, which seemed to be the uniform of some college. At this moment, her beautiful little face was full of anger. She stared at the bearded man with her beautiful cold eyes. Behind her, a short distance away, a group of teenage boys and girls were walking towards her. There were 5 of them, all of whom were dressed in the same outfits as hers, and a middle-aged man in gray minter uniform was walking beside them. It seemed that a mentor of the academy was taking trainees out on a field trip. However, Yunwoo gave an obvious frown on sight of that female. Li Xiner. She used to hang out in General Mansion and seemed to enjoy being Yun Lingshui's lackey. In her memory, Li Xiner had offered Yun Lingshui a lot of prankish ideas to play tricks on her. On the worst occasion, they hung her by her feet from a branch and whipped her till she was covered in cuts and bruises. Then they left her hanging there for a whole day and a night, which nearly killed her. Afterwards, it was said that she got a place in Warrior Academy. Unexpectedly, after more than a year, the two foes ran into each other at such an out-of-the-way place. Watching Li Xiner down there, the corner of Yunwoo's compressed lips suddenly curved up slightly. Hearing that reprimand in a female voice, the strong man frowned and turned his head. "Little girl, go away and do what you gotta do. Stay out of my business, or you'll get yourself into trouble." This business of yours has just become my business." After a cold snort, Li Xiner swung her sword at him with a flash of cold light. Her attacks were fast and steady, fighting spirit engulfing the blade, and a scorching hotness started pervading. Yellow tier talent, tier 2 early stage, fire. The impatience on the strong man's face was instantly replaced by grave ferocity as soon as he saw this scene. When that sword slash was coming for him, he immediately loosened his grip on the old woman and whipped out the broad saber fastened to his waist. Orange fighting spirit billowing out from his body along with tier 2 peak fighting force. Two figures intertwined with each other instantly. Yet the gap between the strength of the two sides was very obvious. After a few moves, Li Xiner was clearly reduced to a passive position. "Let us help, junior sister." With a yell and a haughty tone, the 5 teenagers joined the fight forthwith. In the blink of an eye, the situation became 6 versus 1. That mentor just stood at the side with his arms crossed before his chest, arrogantly watching this fighting scene. The look on his face seemed to be suggesting that not only were they upholding justice, but also this fight was helpful in toughening his students. All of a sudden, someone with sharp eyes saw the logos on their outfits and cried in surprise. "My God, they're from the Mighty King Warrior Academy?" "What? Mighty King Warrior Academy?" Immediately, the eyes of all the people around swept towards the students with an intent look. Very soon, a ghost of astonishment and excitement flashed in their eyes. The Mighty King Warrior Academy was the best academy in Zhou Dynasty, and it was said the entrance requirement was very strict. Applicants whose talent failed to meet the criteria would never be admitted even if they were members of royal family. As a result, whoever got admitted into Mighty King Academy was undoubtedly top applicants with exceptional talent. No wonder that tough hombre looked so violent and wicked, yet this little girl still dared to mess with him. It turned out that she was from the Mighty King Warrior Academy. Terrific. Nice move. She's definitely from the Mighty King Warrior Academy. That girl's not only beautiful, but also so powerful. At this moment, loud cheers arose among the crowd along with animated compliments and admiration, surrounding Li Xian'er and the other 5 teenagers. Hearing the compliments, Li Xian'er was somewhat self-satisfied, and her moves became more aggressive. Although that strong man was in peak stage of Tier 2, his 6 opponents were all above Tier 2, and one of them was even in late stage of Tier 2. Their moves were ruthless and their teamwork was very good. After fighting for such a long time, a number of cuts appeared on him. Abruptly, the 6 opponents launched their attacks on him from his front, back, left, and right sides simultaneously, every saber aiming at his vital parts. The strong man's facial expression changed. He took a transverse slash and tapped on the ground with his foot, planning to leap upwards and flee. But at this moment, a cold look appeared in the eyes of the middle-aged mentor at the side. Villain, where do you think you're going? With a quick swing of his hand, earth energy surged out, and a spurt of weighty earth force emerged in the air, pressing straight downwards onto the head of the strong man. Air. The strong man couldn't help giving a muffled groan, the force weighing him down like the full weight of the Tai Mountain. The look on his face changed drastically. With a downward movement of his body, his feet violently sank deep into the ground. The momentum of that great force diffused outwards, and all the people around felt a tide of compressive force coming right towards their front. Gasps and yells were heard. A Tier 7 Earthmaster. His fighting forces so formidable, his earth-controlling capabilities amazing. When people around were still screaming in shock, Li Xian'er seized this opportunity, a killing intent flickering across her eyes. With a feet movement, she stabbed her sword towards that strong man's heart ruthlessly. Die, villain. But all of a sudden, a cold light shot at her face head-on. It was so fast, leaving her no time to react. Fortunately, that mentor had both sharp eyes and quick reflexes, drawing Li Xian'er backwards with great suction. Who is it? You dared to stab us in the back? The mentor's face became sullen, his sharp eyes sweeping around. It was at this time that the people around reacted. They saw a small knife sticking in the ground, giving off eerie, cold reflection of light. If it weren't for that the mentor's movement was quicker, that knife would have taken Li Xian'er's life. Yet, his angry yell received no response. In a box on the 2nd floor. You little thing, aren't you not interested? With an enchanting smile, Long Qingxia stared at Yunwu. Do you think I'm interested now? Yunwu arched her eyebrows and asked rhetorically. After that, Yunwu continued to enjoy the meal as if nothing had ever happened. However, in this man's eyes, things had just got more interesting. Of course, it was not Long Qingxia who had shot that knife. To him, except for this woman before him, nobody else was worthy of him taking any action. Yet this woman's sudden behavior had somewhat surprised him. Judging by her personality, she didn't seem like the kind of person who would show anyone excessive sympathy. Unless one of those people below once messed with her. Long Qingxia reached out his hand, scratched the bridge of her nose and pinched her delicate cheek. So naughty. Yunwu slapped his hand away and gave a reproachful look at him. You know, as a man, you can just talk if you want to talk. So stop touching me so frequently. I'm not a cloth puppet. Hearing her words, Long Qingxia gave a languid evil smile. Okay, then. From now on, instead of using my hands, I'll use my mouth. On hearing this, Yunwu was embarrassed. A timid, annoyed glint flashed across Yunwu's eyes. Shameless. Thanks. Long Qingxia grinned, enjoying that word very much. This bitch. Yunwu really wanted to hurl abuse at him. Actually, she had done that before. However, the outcome was just like what had just happened before her. To him, It seemed as if all abuse was compliments. The more angrily she swore at him, the more he enjoyed it. And eventually, it was herself that suffered from the anger. Actually, Yunwoo believed he did this deliberately, absolutely deliberately. So, most of the time, she tolerated it whenever she could, because she didn't want to content him. What she didn't know was that what satisfied this man the most was exactly the fact that she was plainly full of anger, yet still had to try her best to swallow it down. However, at the time when these two people were flirting, outside the window, that Minter had focused his aggressive eyes on their position. "Junior, get down here right now and explain yourselves." The angry cry had just died away when a surge of earth force fiercely charging at the window of the wing room on the second floor. Thud. With a loud thump, the window was shattered to pieces. All the spectators below raised their heads and looked upwards. When they saw the two men in the wing room, especially when they saw the one with silver hair, all people couldn't help but gasp secretly. A gleam of astonishment crossed their eyes. Even men found that bewitching beauty irresistible and couldn't help praising it privately. But that Minter's face became leaden, vigilance arising in him. Others might not know it, but he knew very clearly that the earth force he had exerted was cancelled out by some mysterious force after breaking that window. He was in late stage of Tier 7, yet his power was cancelled out quietly. There was only one plausible explanation for this, but how was this possible? One of them was seemingly in his early 20s, and the other was just a teenager. How was it possible that any of them was more powerful than him? Right at this moment when suspicion and confusion were full of his mind, beside him, a tender and charming voice was heard. "Child, we're trainees of Mighty King Warrior Academy, and this is the Minter of our class. May I ask why you helped that villain just now?" Li Xiner raised her head and stared directly at Long Qingxia. Judging by that bashfulness on her face, even blind people would know clearly what she was thinking of. Yunwoo raised her eyebrows and glanced at Long Qingxia out of the corner of her eye. It seems that this devil's magnetism is really enormous. His face alone can fascinate whoever sees it. However, under Li Xiner's gaze, which was full of bashfulness, that devil said, "Tiny, you were right. This Mighty King Warrior Academy indeed enrolled a bunch of blind and stupid students." Saying this, he reached out his hand and stroked Yunwoo's head, with a grave look on his face which was suggesting she was right. Yunwoo was stunned. What had she been right about? What had she said? But after a second, Yunwoo, who finally understood, clenched her teeth in anger. This damn man dared to frame her right under her nose. After the man said that, not only did the look on Li Xiner's face freeze, but also the other 5 teenage boys and girls were astounded, annoyance surging through them. "What did you say, pal?" Not to mention that Minter's face, it instantly became black with rage. With a grip of his fists, furious power gushed out momentarily. "As a junior, you are way too arrogant." "Arrogant? But I think what she said is right," Long Qingxia added casually and languidly. Finally, all the fury was ignited instantly. But at this moment, a chopstick shot across the air. Under everybody's eyes, that little thin chopstick went straight into the shank of the old woman who was trying to escape stealthily. Ouch! A painful screech was heard. "Leave my stuff before you leave." A cold voice casually came from the second floor. Seeing this scene, everybody felt a chill in their heart. No fighting spirit and no manipulation of element energy. Yet the chopstick had accurately gone through that old woman's shank after traveling such a long distance. What kind of power was that? When everybody raised their head in amazement and looked at Yunwoo, who was in men's clothing, that little girl below recoiled and hurriedly tried to nudge her way into the crowd. But the next moment, that strong man blocked her path. "Still want to leave?" The strong man's face was full of sullenness and anger. He reached out his hand, grabbed her, and lifted that small figure up. "Let go of me, you villain. Let me go." A childish voice said. "You scoundrel still dared to do evil." Li Xiner reprimanded. No matter what, if she still wanted to give that silver-haired man a good impression, continuing to curb the violent and assist the weak was definitely her best choice. With her beauty and deeds, She believed that he would surely be attracted to her. However, right at the time when Li Exiner was indulging herself with her rosy fantasies, the strong man went angry. He stretched out his strong palm and rubbed it against the dirty face of that little girl. When that thick layer of filth was removed, an old, ugly face full of wrinkles emerged before the crowd. Everybody, watch closely. The two are utter frauds. Hearing this yell, all people present were stunned, including Li Exiner, who had been meaning to act like a hero and uphold the justice. To get a ripe fire-focused fruit, I risked life and limb staying in the magic beast's forest for half a year, and nearly got killed by a magic beast. My wife is ill and she needs this fruit. But these two despicable frauds told me that they were pharmacists. They not only tricked me out of my life savings, but also stole my fire-focused fruit and ran away. I tracked them for a whole month, and today I finally got them. Saying this, the strong man indignantly turned his head back, looking at Li Exiner, who was standing transfixed, as well as those trainees and their mentor. But you people of Mighty King Warrior Academy, you attacked me without knowing anything about the truth, and you even tried to kill me with all your deadly blows. Is this how you Mighty King Warrior Academy guys do things? You gave me chills in the heart. Originally, they had thought that they were upholding the justice and helping the weak, yet at this moment, they instantly became an extremely ridiculous laughingstock. Li Exiner clenched her fists and anxiously said without thinking, "Look at yourself, so ugly and villain-like. Whoever sees you will think that you're not a good people. So who can you blame for your being misunderstood?" Yet her remarks displayed the lowest stupidity. So you're saying that you judge people only on their looks? Haha. Everybody keeps saying that all students of Mighty King Warrior Academy are talents of genius, but today I really broadened my horizons. These so-called talents are nothing but a bunch of fools who judge people by their appearance. The strong man burst into laugh, his angry words harboring endless sneer. However, at this moment, all the others fell into silence. The nobility and superiority of the Mighty King Warrior Academy was beyond words. Yet this luxuriantly bearded man dared to make a statement like this. Was he not afraid of retaliation? However, hearing these words, that mentor became speechless. If the mentor's face was originally black, then it turned livid at this instant. He slid a reproachful sideways glance at Li Exiner, the look in his eyes full of irritation indicating that she never made but always broke. On an eye contact with the mentor, Li Exiner gave a shiver. She suddenly realized the stupidity of her previous words, but she still believed that this was not all her fault. Why she had to take all the blame? Fairly annoyed, she raised her head and glared at Yunwu, who was on the second floor. A cold glint flickered across her pretty eyes. All this was on him? If it weren't for him being an interfering busybody, how could things end up like this? She didn't care about whether they were frauds or not. She launched attack only to give the mentor a favorable impression. But she had never expected that what she did would make a shameful laughingstock of Mighty King Warrior Academy. Damn, that goddamn kid. He's not getting away with this. As regards the other 5 trainees, the looks on their faces also instantly became quite a show. Liars. That old woman and the kid were liars? Even if they didn't want to admit, the fact was right before them. At this moment, all their previous pride and vanity turned into ridicule and shame. Especially when everybody was looking at them, their faces couldn't look worse. As for what happened next, Yunwu had lost interest in it. Under everybody's gaze, she stood up and returned to her room. In regard Long Qingxia, that devil was naturally like a copycat. After following her into her room, he took liberties with her, which of course irritated Yunwu, and then he leisurely and languidly went back to his own room. This inn was very quiet. For the whole night, nobody disturbed them. Yunwu was fairly confused. Because to her knowledge of Li Exiner, she believed that what she had done previously would undoubtedly annoy Li Exiner, so Li Exiner would sneak in and do something at midnight. Yet she waited all night but didn't see anybody. The next morning, when Yunwu and Long Qingxia walked out of the inn and was about to depart for the Magic Beast Forest, it was so coincidental. A slim and delicate figure accidentally ran into them and fell straight towards Long Qingxia. Ouch! A female yell was heard. The corner of Long Qingxia's mouth slightly curved up, yet a cold gleam flashed across his eyes. He took a step back, moving sideways. Li Xianer's falling figure missed him, and her mouth went straight towards the ground. Right at the moment when Li Xianer's facial expression slightly changed, a figure rapidly rushed over and supported her. "Are you okay, junior sister?" It was the only one among the 5 trainees who was in late stage of Tier 2, Gu Qing. He was about 18 or 19 years old, and his look was all right, yet not exactly handsome. About 5 feet in height, he was wearing a yellow outfit, which made him look a little dumpy. Standing side by side with Li Xianer, he didn't seem to be as tall as she was. Judging from the concerned look in his eyes, he clearly had a crush on Li Xianer. Unfortunately, Li Xianer's eyes were squarely fixed on Long Qingxia, like a piece of fly sticker sticking to him. She didn't reply to Gu Qin. Li Xianer bashfully looked at Long Qingxia and said, "I'm sorry, child. Did I hurt you just now? I'm a trainee from Mighty King Warrior Academy, Li Xianer." So saccharine, so gross, excessively feminine voice. She didn't know how that devil felt, but Yunwu was covered in goosebumps. No wonder Li Xianer didn't come to seek revenge last night. It turned out that the reason was this goddamn devil. Women equal trouble. The saying was correct. Although there was a smile on the corner of Long Qingxia's mouth, he glanced at her blandly. "Oh, you're one of the blind and stupid trainees we met yesterday. Since you're blind, I certainly won't blame you." Hearing his remarks, Li Xianer's smile instantly froze, an awkward glint flashing across her eyes. Supporting Li Xianer, Gu Qin's face clouded after hearing these words. "Don't go too far, child. What happened yesterday was a misunderstanding. You don't have to keep bringing it up and insulting us." "You, senior brother." Li Xianer pulled Gu Qin and told him to stop talking. Gu Qin was very unhappy, but under Li Xianer's gaze, he swallowed it. A delicate smile reappeared on the beautiful face of Li Xianer. "I can see that you're going to Magic Beast's Forest. It happens that we're going there to improve our skills as well. Can we go with you? If we go together, we can take care of each other." So, this was the reason why they had shown up at the gate of this inn waiting for them so early. The 6 of them had come here together, which indicated that the one who wanted to invite them to travel together was their mentor. It must be that that mystical force in Yun Wu's move yesterday had aroused that mentor's suspicion. Possibly he wanted to travel together with them because he intended to sound them out. Yet Long Qingxia didn't reject immediately. He stretched out his long arm and put it on Yun Wu's shoulder, his big body languidly leaning against her. After enchantingly and intimately blowing into Yun Wu's ear, Long Qingxia said sentimentally, "You decide, Tiny. You know, I'll do whatever you say." Seeing the intimacies between the 2 men, people around started giving them weird gaze, including several trainees behind Li Xianer. With a frown on her face, Li Xianer clenched her fists secretly. Yet this pal again? She had never failed to get the man she wanted. It was just that she hadn't expected that the rival she was going to vie with was a man. The anger in her heart was quickly replaced by a killing intent. Very good. As for that kid, she had always felt that he was an eyesore from the beginning, and yesterday he made an utter fool of her. If it weren't for the handsome silver-haired man beside him, she would have made her move last night. It seemed that she would have to make sure he never came back after they arrived in the Magic Beast's Forest. Li Xianer concealed her psychological changes very well, if not perfectly. However, what she didn't know was that this was exactly what Yunwu wanted. She once said that she wouldn't let a single one of those who had bullied her get away. This little town was so remote, yet they still encountered her. So, Yunwu would surely take her life. "Would you mind my coming along with you, young friends?" At this time, that mentor walked towards them from a small alley, with a look just as condescending and grave as yesterday. "Teacher Wu." Li Xianer and the other 5 trainees respectfully greeted him. Wu Qin nodded, gazing at Yunwu with piercing eyes. It seemed that he had heard their previous conversation. Or maybe he had been deliberately hiding and observing them from the beginning. Looking Wu Qin in the eyes, the corner of Yunwu's lips slowly curved up. "It's our honor to have a master as powerful as Teacher Wu to be our companion. Apologies for the trouble we may cause you, Teacher Wu." Wu Qin enjoyed these words very much. As a mentor of the mighty King Warrior Academy, people always looked up to and flattered him wherever he went. He could even do almost whatever he wanted to do in Zhou Dynasty. As for these two juniors, he deigned to travel together with them merely because of that mystical force which appeared yesterday. Whichever of these two that power had come from, he would consider enrolling him on behalf of the Academy if he indeed was highly talented. This was literally a gift for anybody. However, it was on the day when he saw the two figures dwarfing all people that he realized how ridiculous this idea of a gift had been. The Magic Beast's forest was mighty and vast, with numerous rolling mountains. Apart from various rare birds and unique beasts, there were also countless precious medicinal herbs in it. Generally speaking, the magic beasts that lived on the periphery of the forest were usually low-level ones. The deeper into the forest the area was, the higher the level of the magic beasts were, and the more powerful they were. Those who came in large groups or small teams, even mercenaries, rarely ventured into the depths of the forest. After hundreds of thousands of years' accumulation, the deeper the area, the rarer and more abundant the precious medicinal herbs. Ever since they entered the magic beast's forest, Wu Qin had been guiding them wandering on the periphery. When they ran into magic beasts, he'd always ask Li Exiner and the other 5 trainees to kill them. Yun Wu and Long Qingxie just followed behind them, idly watching as if they were enjoying the performances of a circus. After that fierce fight ahead was over, Li Exiner neatly took out a dagger, cut open the head of the magic beast, and extracted a gray walnut-like magic core. Mr. Wu, this is the last Tier 1 peak stage magic core we need. The mission is accomplished. Grabbing the magic core covered in brains, Li Exiner proudly raised her hand and yelled happily in Wu Qin's direction. Yet her eyes were focusing on Long Qingxie, who was behind Wu Qin. It seemed as though she wanted to find a ghost of special feeling for her in his eyes. It was a pity that his eyes had been on the boy beside him all along. He didn't even glance at her out of the corner of his eye. She couldn't help getting annoyed. A faint smile finally appeared on Wu Qin's face when he saw this. Not bad. Come here, all of you. It had only been a day and a night. Yet they had managed to collect 5 Tier 1 intermediate stage magic cores, 2 Tier 1 advanced stage magic cores, and a Tier 1 peak stage magic core. This speed was very quick. The time they had used was far less than what Wu Qin had expected, an element of gratification tinged with haughtiness arising in him. Hearing Wu Qin's call, Li Exiner and the others hurriedly came over from beside the body of that magic beast. What's our next assignment, Mr. Wu? Wu Qin was very happy to see that his students were so motivated. Yet at this time, Wu Qin turned his head back and looked at Yun Wu and Long Qingxie, who had been following them for a whole day, yet hadn't made any moves. Young friends, would you please join us and give us a hand from time to time? Long Qingxie languidly leaned against a tree beside him and said idly, I only answer to my tiny. If she says yes, I'll have some fun with you. With a single remark, he put Yun Wu in the limelight again. With a sepulchral look in her eyes, Li Exiner secretly clenched her fists. Wu Qin's glance rested on Yun Wu again. Then, what do you say, young friend? Unexpectedly, with her lips curving in a smile, Yun Wu agreed exceptionally crisply. Okay, but I want to team up with Ms. Li in a broad mauve men's robe. Not only didn't her slim figure seem delicate, but also the robe imparted an elegant, ethereal temperament to her. Without the apathy in her eyes, she would be a standard, adorable little boy. Hearing Yun Wu's remarks, Li Exiner was amazed. Teaming up with her? She had expected that she could partner the handsome silver-haired man, but to her surprise that boy wanted to team up with her. Did he have a crush on her? Him. Does he actually think that he's worthy of me? But this sounded fine, because she was in fact worried that she might not be able to find an opportunity to strike. They separated into 2 teams with 4 members, each to gather the medicinal materials on a list. Yun Wu, Li Exiner, Gu Qin, and another female trainee named Xine composed a team. Yet Long Qingxie were assigned to the other team along with the other 3 trainees. This, needless to say, was Wu Qin's deliberate arrangements. In order to find out who released that mystical force that day, the only way, naturally, was to divide them from each other. Be careful, Tiny. Long Qingxie stroked her head like a doting parent, but the next moment, in a muted voice that could only be heard by themselves, he said, Don't be too soft and don't leave any survivors. When the job's done, I'll come and find you. The white clothing gave him an ethereal, otherworldly air as if he was a white lotus growing in earthliness. Yet deep down in his enchanting eyes, there was a flicker of bloodiness. If people stayed with this man long enough, they would find that beneath his sweet appearance there was a bloodthirsty, deceitful soul. What are you waiting for? Move. Before Yunwu could respond to Long Qingxie's husband and wife concern for her, Li Xianer's sullen, angry rebuke was heard. Women's jealousy was actually horrible. Once they were determined to do something or own something, they would rack their brains and do whatever they could to get what they wanted. Originally, according to Wu Qin's instructions, they were supposed to gather medicinal materials within an area of about 100 meters into the forest. But as the team leader, Li Xianer deliberately kept leading them deeper into the forest. Before they knew it, they reached the depths of the peripheral mountains, exuberant towering trees darkening the whole area. Dimly, they seemed to have sensed a tinge of danger lurking somewhere around them. Roar! Suddenly, deafening roars of magic beasts rumbled over from the depths of the forest. The momentum of the sound was definitely not something that the sound of those low-level magic beasts on the periphery could compare with. Instantly, Gu Qin and Xiane stopped, their eyes sweeping around vigilantly and nervously. Junior sister, we've reached the boundary of mountains. If we keep going, I'm afraid we'll be entering dangerous area, Gu Qin said with a frown on his face. Xiane also nodded. Yes. Mr. Wu said that we should gather medicinal materials within a range of 100 meters, but now we don't even know how far we have walked. What are you nervous about? This distance is perfect. Even a scream won't be heard by Mr. Wu. Li Xianer stopped and said inexplicably. The corner of her lips curved up. Gu Qin and Xiane was stunned. What does she mean? At this time, with a cold flash of ruthlessness in her eyes, Li Xianer whipped out her sword and pointed at Yunwu. I've been sick of you for a long time. Yunwu watched Li Xianer, who was pointing a sword at her, a ghost of sepulchral smile flashing across her pretty face. Seeming as if she had seen through Li Xianer's thoughts a long time ago, Yunwu was exceptionally composed at this moment. Exchanging an eye contact, Gu Qin and Xiane were startled by Li Xianer, and they didn't try to think why Li Xianer wanted to do this. Gu Qin walked over, reached out his hand and pulled that of Li Xianer's before asking with a frown, Junior sister, what are you doing? Don't you think this guy's disgusting, senior brother? Finally, a fearsome expression came over on Li Xianer's face. Now that they had gone this far, there was no need for Li Xianer to conceal her true intention of killing Yunwu. Among the three trainees, Xiane was the relatively timid one. Hearing Li Xianer's remarks, her heart missed a beat and she hurriedly waved her arms, saying, Come on, put your sword away, Li Xianer. If Mr. Wu knows this, he's definitely gonna punish you. I must kill him today. Li Xianer raised her voice, a cold murderous look flickering in Li Xianer's eyes. By the light, the blade of the sword reflected its shiny sharpness. She had been waiting for so long, so how could she possibly let go of this opportunity? Gu Qin and Xiane were scared by Li Xianer's posture, but they also knew her very well. They turned their heads and looked at Yunwu. What happened the day before yesterday flashed through their minds. They had never endured that kind of humiliation and shame before, and technically, this guy in front of them was the very reason why they had had to go through all that. And now here was a very good opportunity. If they didn't kill him now, they might never get another chance again. Killing intent flickered in their eyes. Both the two pulled out their swords and formed a row opposite Yunwu. Li Xianer was very satisfied with their joining in and she gave a few cold laughs. You know what you did wrong, pal? With a languid look on her face, Yunwu let out a hoa sound in a low voice and asked rhetorically, What did I do wrong? I'm actually curious about it. What you did wrong is that you shouldn't have been an interfering busybody that day, replied Gu Qin impatiently. Yet Li Xianer said, Do you actually think that you deserve that handsome man? And you even dared to require teaming up with me. You should have pissed onto the ground and looked into the urine to see how disgusting you are. It's been more than a year, Lee Exiner. I didn't expect that you're still so narcissistic. The corner of Yun Wu's lips curved into a perfect curve, and the next second, with a flip of her hand followed by a flash of cold light, a sword mounted with rubies was produced. The three was amazed. Since when had she been carrying a sword? It had been a year? Did she meet her a year ago? Lee Exiner started recollecting. Yun Wu gave a gentle twist to the sword in her hand and then sank it heavily into the ground, a surge of intangible killing aura storming towards the three. Nobody knew whether she did it intentionally or unintentionally. Her tightly tied hair suddenly loosened and the raven hair stuck to her face in gusts of icy wind, covering her exquisite white face with a layer of chilly murderousness. She had always had her own principles, repay every favor, and settle every score. Lee Exiner must pay for whatever she had done to her. Now that the three of them wanted her dead, then it was not necessary for themselves to live any longer. Certainly, before that, she would tell Lee Exiner the true meaning of the word disgusting. Black hair covering half of her face, she narrowed her cold eyes as if she were a vengeful ghost coming from the hell to collect lives. Suddenly, the faint image of a sick-looking face flashed across Lee Exiner's mind. Lee Exiner's heart missed a beat. With a shiver of her hand, she subconsciously called, Yun Wu. No, impossible. She couldn't be Yun Wu. Yun Wu's a sick good-for-nothing. How could she possibly be here? Besides, this was Northern Magic Beast's forest. How came? With various how come, Lee Exiner denied the suspicions in her mind. No, impossible. Yun Wu's a woman. She is merely... However, a breeze went by and blew aside the hair covering Yun Wu's face, which was like white jade and bearing a cold-blooded smile. In Lee Exiner's mind, a scene abruptly passed through. Back when they were still in the Yu mansion, she whipped Yun Wu till she was covered in bruises and cuts before hanging her by her feet from a tree. At that time Yun Wu was dying. Her body was dangling to and fro with neither any vigor on her face nor any strength to struggle. At this instant, that image of Yun Wu in Lee Exiner's mind overlapped with this Yun Wu before her. Yun Wu. Lee Exiner's heart missed a beat. Widening her eyes, she stared squarely at Yun Wu, unable to believe what she was seeing. Very good. It seems that there's no need for me to bother explaining to you who I am before you die. The corner of Yun Wu's mouth curved up, her hands overlapping on the sword hilt. Her legs moved slightly away from each other, and then she tapped her forefinger at the back of the other hand. Her voice was very gentle, yet people hearing it found it eerie. Lee Exiner, even if you don't want to kill me today, I'm afraid you're still not going to make it out of this magic beast's forest. Yun Wu? Who is it? Gu Qin turned his head and asked Lee Exiner. Lee Exiner was terrified by Yun Wu's posture and started moving backwards, having no time to answer Gu Qin. Watching Yun Wu in front of her, Exiner felt a great sense of crisis, as if they were about to die in a short while. This uncanny feeling gave her lurches in the heart. Face darkening, Exiner took a step forward and yelled, Senior brother, Lee Exiner, stop wasting time talking to her. Let's join hands and kill her. Hearing this, Lee Exiner and Gu Qin gave their swords a twist with a murderous gleam in their eyes, fighting spirit surging out with a cold gleam. Three figures charged at Yun Wu with tacit teamwork and intense killing aura. Cold eyes fixed on the three people closing in on her. Yun Wu whipped out the sword in the ground and started advancing instead of backing. Seeing that she was coming for them head-on instead of evading, Lee Exiner, Gu Qin, and Exiner sneered. All of them were masters of swordsmanship in the academy, and it would be a piece of cake for them to kill her in a 3-versus-1 fight. Their killing intent was very intense. Yet in the next second, the sneering killing intent was replaced by amazement instantly. We missed? How is it possible? However, right under their amazed gaze, a flash of cold light shot at them from their sides. Ah! With a painful scream, Exiner heavily fell to the ground, and her sword stuck into a big tree behind her. Exiner, are you okay? Gu Qin and Lee Exiner looked at Exiner, ashen-faced. Xine turned her head, gave a glance, and then widened her eyes so drastically that it seemed as if her canty were about to crack. She cried painfully, "My arm!" There was a deep cut in her right arm, and the arm was nearly cut off, blood gushing out from the wound. "I didn't cut it off? It seems that this sword's not sharp enough." Watching the blood-stained sword in her hand, Yunwu mumbled in undertones with a frown. Hearing this, Xianyi's pupils contracted, and then she swelled with rage. Without her right arm, her prospects were doomed even if she was a genius. But Yunwu had put it as if she found the kitchen knife was not sharp enough when she was cutting vegetables. "I'll kill you." Xianyi furiously picked herself up, grabbed the sword behind her, and stabbed it squarely towards Yunwu. Yunwu's lips curved into a sanguinary smile. Seeing it, Guqin and Li Xiner tried to stop her. Xine, clang. A sound of the sword clashing the ground was heard. Xine stood still behind Yunwu. All of a sudden, thud. Xine started falling straight backwards. There was a cut on her white neck, blood flowing out. Her eyes were dilated with fear and incredibility. Her speed was eerily fast. Yunwu took out a piece of white silk from somewhere and started wiping the bloody blade elegantly. "All those who wanted to kill me are in the underworld now." "What a stupid woman," Yunwu coldly said in a low mumble. Yet it was loud enough to be heard clearly by both Li Xiner and Guqin. You killed a trainee of Mighty King Warrior Academy." Li Xiner glowered. Xine was in middle stage of Tier 2, that was one level higher than her. Yet she just got killed like this? How did this happen? Isn't she a lame duck? So what? Yunwu lifted her cold eyes and darted a glance at her. "Just because you're from that warrior academy, I have to stand still and let you kill me?" That was true. In a life-or-death moment, nobody cared who the enemies were or what background they were from. Anyone would just fight back. But she obviously had done it on purpose. However, at this moment, both Guqin and Li Xiner knew clearly that although this Yunwu hadn't used warrior power, she had managed to break through the defense of someone in middle stage of Tier 2, and her bodily movements were uncannily fast, just like that of an assassin. Was she by any chance an assassin? If she was, then being in this dense forest would be the biggest disadvantage of them. "We should retreat and find our teacher first. Then we come back and take her life." "Yunwu, that's your name, right? You killed a member of our academy. You've made an enemy of the whole Mighty King Warrior Academy. Let's go, junior sister." Guqin gave a bluff before leaving. Unfortunately, they had hardly walked 2 steps forward when a sword whooshed towards them. Li Xiner and Guqin hurriedly somersaulted. The sword inlaid with rubies deeply stuck into the ground before them. "You want to leave? Do you really think that's going to happen?" An extremely cold voice came from behind them. Guqin and Li Xiner turned around. "Don't go too far, Yunwu, or we're really going to be hard on you," Li Xiner reprimanded angrily. Yet Yunwu's eyes were exceptionally cold. "Do you think you've been kind to me from the beginning?" Watching her frosty black eyes, the two were startled secretly. "But it's fine if you want to leave. As long as you leave your lives here." Yunwu's lips curved into a cold smile. "How the hell can we leave without our lives?" Immediately, their sense of pride in their great talent was provoked. "You really know how to bluff. Then I'd like to see how you can have us leave our lives here." Guqin's face darkened completely. Tier 2 late stage fighting force soaring up all out. Fighting spirit engulfed his sword with a gleam. In a blink, Guqin dashed towards Yunwu at lightning speed. She was an assassin without a sword. He liked to see what else she could do. Watching Guqin dashing at her, Yunwu gave a bloodthirsty smile. Having no sword? For a killer, as long as they still had their hands, they could kill people without the victim knowing how they had done it. With a flash of magenta light in her palm, Yunwu pinched the sword, stabbing towards her with 2 fingers. Before the terrified gaze of Guqin, she exerted her inner strength and turned the blade, slashing towards Guqin's neck. But Guqin was in late stage of Tier 2 after all. He came over from shock and retreated rapidly. "Your reflexes are pretty quick, but you still have to die." After saying this coldly, with a magenta light in her palm, Yunwu broke straight through his Tier 2 late-stage defense. Ka-ka. Sounds of bones breaking were heard. There was still horror in Gu Qin's eyes, yet his neck had been twisted by that little hand and was drooping at a weird angle. Li Xianer's eyes caught this scene distinctly. A gasp of fright was heard. Almost out of instincts, Li Xianer turned around and fled towards the periphery. Yet with a sudden numbness on her feet, inertia caused her falling forward onto the ground. Her ample bosoms nearly burst due to the impact, and she repeatedly gasped in pain. After the pain eased a little, she hurriedly looked at her shank and unexpectedly saw 2 silver needles in it. From where the needles were, numbness and pain tinged with dryness heat had started spreading across her whole body. In the blink of an eye, Yunwu moved over, coldly looking down at her. "Wah, what did you do to me?" Li Xianer raised her head and glared at her, yet her voice was slightly quivering. Just now, she became well aware that this Yunwu before her was not that sickly loser in the Yun mansion anymore. Gu Qin was a Tier 2 late-stage warrior, yet she had managed to pinch Gu Qin's sword with her fingers, break his defense, and snap his neck. She had finished all these movements in less than a minute. During the last year, what kind of monster had she turned into? Nothing. Just a tiny little bit of aphrodisiac flower poison, Yunwu said casually. But Li Xianer's pupils abruptly contracted. Aphrodisiac flower poison was the evilest aphrodisiac. The victim of this poison couldn't have sex, because once they started having sex with someone, they wouldn't be able to stop until they died, which meant they had to painfully subdue the surging sexual desire. She actually used such an evil poison on me? A flicker of hatred crossed her eye, but in the blink of an eye, Li Xianer's eyes faintly went red. She crawled beside Yunwu's feet and started kowtowing to Yunwu violently. "Yunwu, Miss Yun, what I did previously was wrong. I'm a bitch. I'm kowtowing to you. Please spare me. Please." She was the precious daughter of the assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue, and also an extraordinarily talented girl, and she had never been humiliated this way. Li Xianer secretly decided that she would not let her get away with what she had done to her today. After she found her teacher, she would definitely cut her to pieces. But was Yunwu that easy to fool? As regards her petty little tricks, Yunwu could see through them without even thinking. Watching Li Xianer begging her, Yunwu was totally indifferent, as if she hadn't heard it at all. Having not received any response from Yunwu for quite a while, Li Xianer felt that the dryness, heat, numbness, and pain in her were getting increasingly intenser, and correspondingly, the hatred was also getting more and more profound. All of a sudden, a killing intent flashed across her eyes. Under the cover of her kowtowing movements, she conveniently whipped out a dagger from her sleeve and stabbed at Yunwu's stomach. Now that Yunwu was so iron-hearted, she wanted her to die together with her. But in the next second, Li Xianer's face suddenly froze. And then, a magenta warrior defensive power hit her instantly, causing her to fly away and heavily struck a tree nearby. "It seems that I can't let you die comfortably even if I want to." Finally, Yunwu's eyes became completely cold. A bloodthirsty killing aura spontaneously surged out of her. It seemed as if the aura could penetrate people's chest and bite their hearts with intangible fangs. You're Tier 5, Li Xianer spit a mouthful of blood and watched Yunwu, eyes full of horror. Yet at this moment, Yunwu didn't want to waste any time talking to her. She walked over, grabbed her foot, and dragged her straight towards the depths of the magic beast's forest. A flicker of fear tinged with suspicion crossed Li Xianer's face. "Whe, where are you taking me?" Yunwu kept silent. Li Xianer wanted to resist, yet she discovered that her whole body was numb and feeble with unbearable dryness heat. After a long time's travel, the back of Li Xianer's clothes was worn and her white back became bloody due to rubbing. But under the influence of the aphrodisiac, Li Xianer actually enjoyed the pain very much. She clamped her hands on her ample bosoms and kept kneaded them, letting out occasional groans of delight with both satisfaction and pain on her face. Anybody who saw her would be disgusted instead of aroused. Fortunately, Yunwu had better tolerance than common people did. After traveling an unknown distance, Yunwu finally stopped. However, Li Xianer, who had been twisting and rubbing her body on the ground, became displeased. "Keep walking. I got you a final new home." Enjoy yourself, after taking a disgusted, cold glimpse at Li Exiner, who was on the ground. Yuan Wu exerted her strength and threw Li Exiner into a rue mouse nest. Rue mice didn't count as high-level magic beasts in the Magic Beasts Forest. They were at Tier 1 or Tier 2 at the highest. But they usually moved in large numbers and they also lived in groups, so their combat effectiveness could definitely exceed that of a Tier 4 magic beast. A rue mouse was about the size of a human palm. The whole cave was full of them. Smelling blood, many rue mice started squeaking. When Li Exiner landed, she didn't feel any pain. In self-indulgence, she just kept twisting her body, which was being tortured by sexual desire. Suddenly, a piercing shriek of pain came from the cave. In biting pain, Li Exiner's intoxicated eyes became clear. She seemed to have just found what kind of situation she had been in, and her facial expression changed drastically. Those crowded rue mice were squeaking and wriggling, which sent chills down Li Exiner's spine. Her heart was filled with horror. She subconsciously raised her head, watching Yuan Wu, who was standing at the entrance of the cave, and yelled anxiously, Yuan Wu, help. With her arms languidly crossed before her chest, Yuan Wu squinted her cold eyes and watched silently, the corner of her lips curving into a cold-blooded smile. Seeing that Yuan Wu didn't show any sympathy, Li Exiner became anxious. She had only one life. If she died, everything would be gone. Not to mention that she didn't want to die yet. So she went desperate and repeatedly yelled help at Yuan Wu. Unfortunately, there was no response. Suddenly, another piercing shriek was heard. It turned out that those rue mice were usually asleep during daytime. But her yelling ignorantly had woken up all the rue mice in the cave. The pervading smell of blood whetted the appetite of all the rue mice which had just been awoken. The sounds of them grinding their teeth were heard. The food had been delivered to their nest, and those rue mice knew nothing about etiquette, so they started surging towards her. Shriek was heard, along with the sound of biting and gnawing. The odor of blood filled the cave. Watching those rue mice jostling and hungrily gnawing on her, Li Exiner finally felt the sadness of death. At the moment when Li Exiner was about to be drowned by the flocks of rue mice, she raised her head and yelled with resentment full of her eyes, Yuan Wu, I'll haunt you to death even if I got only my spirit left. From the beginning to the end, Yuan Wu's black eyes were cold all along, and there had never been any compassion at all. Maybe it was when Li Exiner was dying that she really came to understand how cold-blooded Yuan Wu was. Seeing how Li Exiner had ended up, Yuan Wu didn't sympathize with her at all. With a cold look, she watched the rue mice eat the last bit of her and then turned around and left. She had said to herself, whoever had bullied her, she would have them pay the price 100-fold. And Li Exiner was just one of them. Judging by the time she had spent, it should be noon. But those giant trees in the Magic Beasts Forest were too exuberant, which made the forest very dark. After dealing with Li Exiner, Yuan Wu naturally planned to return to the periphery of the forest and meet Long Qingxie. No matter what, Long Qingxie was the only one who was able to identify life grass. However, only a short while after Yuan Wu started leaving, she suddenly stopped, confusedly watching the thick purple fog in the woods ahead. No, technically speaking, that was poisonous smog. In her previous incarnation, she had seen many this kind of thing in Marsen Jungle, but she had never encountered one that was purple. How come this poisonous smog appeared during daytime? It obviously wasn't here on my way in. It's so weird. Yuan Wu couldn't help mumbling, a frown on her face. She didn't know that there had always been poisonous smog in the depths of Magic Beasts Forest, and that the shade of the poisonous smog's color indicated how poisonous the smog was. Ever since the purple poisonous smog appeared, there hadn't been a single magic beast nearby, so this smog must be highly poisonous. Seeing that the purple poisonous smog was permeating towards the depths of the forest, Yuan Wu had no choice but to walk deeper into the forest towards the other side of it, hoping to take a detour around the poisonous smog. After 2 hours, she found that she was still on the edge of the poisonous smog. Yuan Wu finally cursed in a low voice, "Damn it! How vast is this poisonous smog? Girl, I'm afraid you won't be able to detour around it." Although this purple poisonous smog is very common in this magic beast's forest with your current strength, I'm afraid you'll be killed and corroded thoroughly the moment you touch it. At this moment, that old voice came from the necklace at Yunwu's throat. You woke up, old man? Ever since the last time she entered the forbidden area, the old man had been asleep all along. Yunwu had a faint feeling that it was probably because he had helped her. You're so impolite, little girl. Just call me Elder White, that old voice said reproachfully. Yunwu gave a self-conscious smile. This old man had offered help to her for so many times, so she realized that maybe her attitude was indeed too impolite. She adjusted her tone and asked, Elder White, you said that this purple poisonous smog is very common in Magic Beast's forest. Is there any methods to deal with it? Hearing that she had addressed him differently, Elder White said in his old voice, this purple poisonous smog is not difficult to overcome. As long as you get an internal dan of a Tier 3 Chilean snake, then you won't have to worry about the purple poisonous smog anymore. An internal dan of a Tier 3 Chilean snake? Hearing this, Yunwu started contemplating. With her Tier 5 early-stage strength plus her previous experience of catching snakes, it would be a piece of cake for her to beat a Chilean snake and extract its internal dan. But this magic beast's forest was so expansive. Where could she find a Chilean snake? Besides, with this purple poisonous smog, all those magic beasts were either staying in their nests or hiding somewhere. However, when Yunwu was pondering over it, her consciousness suddenly shook and then a piece of information appeared in her mind instantly. Tier 3 Chilean snake, fire attribute. Favorite habitat, grassland. Favorite food, heart intoxicating flower. This was information offered by Soaring Dragon Scroll. Suddenly, a flicker of delight tinged with surprise crossed her eyes, because whenever she tried to think about something, she found that Soaring Dragon Scroll which had entered the Hundun Palace would consciously establish a connection with her. And whatever she was thinking, Soaring Dragon Scroll would automatically offer her the information documented on it. It was so abstruse. But then Yunwu's heart started fluttering violently, as if she had just found secret treasure. Because when she was connected with Soaring Dragon Scroll, she was informed that what Soaring Dragon Scroll had documented was a comprehensive record of everything on the Shenzhou continent, including the locations of many lost treasures. My God, doesn't it mean that I own a treasure map that shows me the locations of all the treasures in the world? And it also documented the locations of the other 3 treasure maps that can summon temples. This is way too. If it weren't for that Yunwu was extraordinarily sensible, she probably would have jumped and burst into laugh by now. But she also understood that she could never tell this amazing secret to anybody else. Otherwise, people would never stop hunting her. Take a deep breath. In the blink of an eye, Yunwu regained her usual composure. I have plenty of time for those in the future. Right now, the most important thing is to get an internal dan of a Chilean snake. Without any hesitation, Yunwu turned around and walked towards the depths of Magic Beast's forest. Heart-intoxicating flower? Back then, when she was stealing medicinal materials from the treasury vault of the royal palace, she had happened to get some heart-intoxicating flowers. She went straight into the depths of the forest. At last, Yunwu chose a rather broad grassy spot in the forest and took out a heart-intoxicating flower about the size of a palm from her storage space. That flower had been meant to be preserved, so it had been dried. Judging from its look, it should be more than 100 years old. And it was still giving off a faint scent of medicine, so it should be effective. But Yunwu took all the heart-intoxicating flowers out of her storage space, rubbed them into pieces and scattered them over the grass in case the scent was not thick enough. After that, she leaped onto a nearby tree and waited, planning to take action on an appropriate occasion after Chilean snake arrived. But what happened next went far beyond Yunwu's previous expectation. As the saying went, you should always expect the unexpected. After Yunwu waited for about an hour, a zephyr blew across the grass. Hiss. Finally, that familiar sound made by a snake was heard. A flicker of excitement crossed the eyes of Yunwu, who was hiding on a trunk. It finally came. Tightly holding the dagger in her hand, the figure on the trunk arched her back and was ready to leap down, cut its neck and extract its internal dan the moment the Chilean snake showed itself. But in the next second, hiss. Hiss, hiss. A red Chilean snake as thick as a man's fist slowly slithered out of the grass. And shortly after that, 2, 3. As if all the Chilean snakes in this forest had come here, soon the grassy area was thick with red bodies of those snakes. Those hundreds of snakes and their hisses gave Yunwu, who was on the tree trunk, numb scalp. If there were only 4 or 5 of them, maybe she could still handle them. But there were several hundred Chilean snakes down there. How was she supposed to fight them? Damn it! Did I use too many hard intoxicating flowers? Watching the large numbers of Chilean snake down there, Yunwu could neither jump down nor leave. She didn't know whether she should smile or cry. Hiss. Suddenly, a blood-curdling hiss was heard. Those Chilean snakes which had been enjoying their meal became somewhat restless after hearing that hiss. Hiss. What's going on? Yunwu looked at the source of the hiss. Instantly, her heart lurched violently and her feet slipped, which nearly caused her falling off the trunk. Is the scent of hard intoxicating flower really so tempting to snakes? She saw that a giant snake, the skin of which looked like iron, was slithering over from the opposite side of those thick grass. The body of the snake was at least twice as thick as a human body. On its head, there was a crimson-yellow crown. Its eyes were as big as lanterns, looking spooky, hideous, and ferocious. It was a Type 4 ironclad snake of Earth attribute. It had strong attacking power and was highly venomous. If there was a crimson-yellow crown on its head, then it was about to break through into Tier 5. Yunwu didn't know whether or not she was too lucky. That oncoming ironclad snake happened to have a crimson-yellow crown on its head. It meant that this was an ironclad snake that was about to break through into Tier 5. Hiss. Flicking its crimson forked tongue, the ironclad snake spewed a cloud of foul black fog out of its mouth. All the grass and trees touched by the black fog quickly withered and decayed as if they had been corroded by sulfuric acid. So venomous. Yunwu suddenly felt a blood-curdling sense of crisis, especially when she saw that the ironclad snake abruptly opened its oversized mouth, spewed out a cloud of foul black fog, and slithered towards those Chilean snake which were restlessly on their escape. Those Chilean snakes which were touched by the black fog let out several hisses repeatedly. Although they were corroded by the poison, it seemed that they passed out. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the gigantic tail of the ironclad snake swept around and sent tins of Chilean snakes straight into its huge mouth. Watching this devouring scene from the trunk, Yunwu felt a chill in the heart. This ironclad snake was apparently more ferocious than those Tier 4 wood wolves. Besides, this one was about to break through into Tier 5. If Long Qingxie were here, he might be able to handle it. But she was definitely no match for it. After weighing up the pros and cons, Yunwu intended to leave. But she was now on a tree trunk near those grass, and the ironclad snake would undoubtedly spot her if she moved. She had just seen with her own eyes how fast it could slither. So Yunwu had no choice but to slow down her breath and try her best to conceal her existence, hoping that that ironclad snake would leave as soon as it ate up those Chilean snakes. It opened its mouth and kept devouring. After a short while, that ironclad snake actually ate all the several hundred Chilean snakes. She had thought that it would leave. But the ironclad snake coiled up right there, with its head down and its eyes closed. That crimson-yellow crown started gleaming and metamorphosing. It seemed that it had devoured so many Chilean snakes in order to break through into Tier 5. Hiding on the tree trunk, Yunwu realized that this was not good. Once it broke through into Tier 5, its strength would grow drastically. In that case, no matter how well she hid herself, it was very likely that the snake would still detect her. Yunwu's original intention of leaving after it finished its meal had failed completely. Yunwu clenched her teeth secretly. While the snake was trying to make a breakthrough, that figure on the trunk started moving downwards bit by bit, trying to retreat without making any sounds. But the moment she loosened her grip on the tree, snap! A twig snapped under her feet. Although the sound was faint, it caused an enormous change of emotion in Yunwu. She turned her head back and saw that the ironclad snake had opened its eerie eyes and was staring straight at her. There had been a moment when Yunwu believed in intense delight tinged with surprise was glinting in its eyes. It was like the delight of seeing food. Yes, that was delight. Does this ironclad snake actually have intelligence? Don't magic beasts become intelligent only after they break through into Tier 6? Damn it! Yunwu cursed in muted voice. Without thinking, she started fleeing. The ironclad snake was very excited. Its huge body took a glide and started pursuing Yunwu hotly. Hiss. The horrible hiss was getting clearer. It had been only several minutes, but Yunwu felt the ironclad snake was about to catch up with her. A cloud of black poisonous fog shot at her. Yunwu hurriedly moved aside. That cloud of foul black fog hit the ground, and all the plants there scorched and decayed. The black viscous fluid on the ground was bubbling, giving off an extremely rank smell. Yunwu's facial expression changed immediately. The poison had become more potent than it had been just now, and it also came with scorching heat. It can actually absorb Chilean snake's heat poison and use it to enhance its own attack? Shit. What kind of mutant is this ironclad snake? That ironclad snake seemed to be determined to eat her. The harder she tried to flee, the more excitedly it pursued. Hiss, hiss. Clouds of black poisonous fog were spewed out and plants were scorched here and there. All of a sudden, thud. A big tree ahead was hit by the poisonous fog and snapped under the corrosion, directly blocking Yunwu's path. Hiss. The ironclad snake's huge body swept towards Yunwu. At this moment, Yunwu also became rather angry. Ever since she came to this eccentric world, this was the first time that she had fled from a magic beast in such an uncollected manner. You goddamn snake went too far. You want to eat me? I'll skin you. She had dared to beat Dragon Prince. Even if she was no match for this snake, she refused to tolerate it playing around with her. When its tail was sweeping towards her, Yunwu flipped her hand and a big saber was produced from the storage space. Tier 5 magenta fighting spirit flaring up. With an aggressive killing aura, she raised the saber and took a slash at the snake tail. Clang. A blare of ironware clashing together was heard. The ironclad snake let out a hiss. A flicker of surprise crossed in its eerie eyes. Unexpectedly, a bleeding cut caused by that slash had appeared in its ironclad tail. Ironclad snake was of earth attribute, so its defense was far stronger than that of common magic beasts. Besides, it had iron skin. Nobody would be able to hurt it, unless its opponent was a human or a magic beast that was several times stronger than it. This was also the reason why it could do whatever it wanted within this area. Yet this human could actually hurt it? However, Yunwu was also startled. After her potent slash hit the target, her hands ached and went numb due to the reaction. And the blade of the big saber missed a big piece. That saber slash only gave it a small cut. Yet her superlative saber was broken? This ironclad snake skin was so fucking formidable. Yet this saber slash provoked the ironclad snake. Hiss. A ghost of anger flashing across its terrifying eyes. It opened its giant two-fanged mouth and a blast of foul black fog rapidly shot at Yunwu. With a frown and a foot movement, Yunwu dodged aside like lightning. Yet the black poisonous fog permeated due to the wind, and some of it touched the purple sleeve around her right arm, corroding it rapidly. Air. She felt a sharp pain in the arm. Yunwu's facial expression changed. She took off her coat immediately and saw that her inside clothes had also been corroded, along with the skin of her arm, rank bloody liquid flowing out of the wound. Suddenly, a scorching foul smell pervaded the air and she felt dizzy. Yunwu was horrified. She clapped her hand over her mouth and nose, but it was too late. The ironclad snake gave a string of excited hisses, its giant tail sweeping towards her. On the periphery of Magic Beast's forest, the 4 members of Long Qingxia's team had fulfilled their task almost in an exceptionally smooth manner. Wu Qin waited and waited, yet Li Xianer's team still didn't come back. He became a little worried. Along with the others, he walked towards Li Xianer's previous direction and started searching for them. Young friend, it's been almost 2 days since we entered this Magic Beast's forest. What should I call you? While they were traveling deeper into the forest and searching, Wu Qin turned his head and asked Long Qingxia a question. Dressed in white, Long Qingxia followed them with a slow step. Hearing Wu Qin's question, he answered idly, You can call me whatever name you want. I'm totally okay with it." Seeing his coquettish, languid look, the two female trainees swelled with anger. After he heard the answer, Wu Qin's face slightly froze. Did this man wanted him to lose face in public? He was a little angry. But if he's really the one who possesses that mystical power, then his wild arrogance is tolerable. "Then may I ask, what are you looking for in Magic Beast's forest? My students have fulfilled most of their tasks. If you want, maybe they can help you." In a mentor's tone, Wu Qin asked again. Yet how could Wu Qin's true intention escape Long Qingxia's enchanting eyes, which seemed to be able to see through people's minds? The corner of Long Qingxia's lips curving into a languid smile, he said blandly, "I think I'll spare you the trouble." However, before he finished his sentence, his voice suddenly paused. A flicker of sullen look crossed his handsome, languid face. He abruptly shot his left hand on his right arm. Just now, there was a faint palpitation in his blood. This was a reaction provoked by the blood connector he had planted in Yunwu's body. This indicated that her right arm had been wounded. Who can hurt her? It's definitely not Li Xiner. Seeing the sudden change of Long Qingxia's air, Wu Qin involuntarily took a step backwards. Unexpectedly, that sullenness and eeriness of him gave Wu Qin a sense of danger and horror. Only those who were more powerful than him could give him this feeling. Who's this guy exactly? At this time, a female trainee screamed, Mr. Wu. Look." That female trainee dilated her eyes, pointing at the corpse which was being gnawed by two low-level wild leopards not far away. Weren't those yellow clothes the exclusive uniform issued by Mighty King Warrior Academy? Wu Qin and the other trainees looked at it, and their facial expression suddenly changed. In the blink of an eye, Wu Qin swung his hand, and a surge of power aggressively shot at those wild leopards. Ow! Giving a roar of pain, the two wild leopards were hit by that potent force and thrown far away. In the next moment, their bodies exploded under the compressive power. This was the earth power that could be manipulated by masters of earth attribute. With a sudden move of his body, Wu Qin rushed forward, followed closely by the other three trainees. Long Qingxia didn't follow, but concentrated his attention on finding Yunwu's current position in this troubled, expansive magic beast forest. There were only two bodies on the site. Gu Qin and Xianyi's bodies were not far away from each other, but had been badly damaged due to the wild leopard's gnawing. They could only faintly tell that Gu Qin's neck had been wrung into a weird angle. His neck was wrung? By somebody? Somebody actually did this to him. Wu Qin's eyes were full of grief and rage. Gu Qin had been his favorite among all his students. If it had been a high-level magic beast that had killed him, he would have tolerated it, but it had been a particular person who had killed him, and he had lost two talented students at a time. How was he supposed to report this to the academy after he went back? Who did this? Wu Qin roared in grief and indignation. "Mr. Wu, come here. Hurry. I found a sword here." The male trainee found something, yelling aloud. Face flushing with anger, Wu Qin instantly shot over with a sudden move of his body. A sword inlaid with rubies stuck deeply into the ground, and there were two footprints nearby, suggesting that somebody had been standing there. After seeing these, Wu Qin's eyes swept around. Signs of a fight could still be seen, but there were only 4 people's footprints. Among the 4 of them, that guy's the only one who can stick a sword deep into the solid ground without using any warrior power. At this thought, utmost anger instantly rose in him. "You killed my students, kid. I'll tear you up into pieces." At the same second, the sepulchral look on Long Qingxia's face suddenly changed, but it was not because of Wu Qin's remarks, but because he had felt a sudden constriction in the heart when he was trying to sense Yunwu's current position. She's in danger. Having sensed that she was somewhere in the depths of the southwestern part of the forest, Long Qingxia turned into a white blur after a sudden move of his body, shooting southwest. However, "You evildoer, you want to flee?" With a sudden move of his body, Wu Qin blocked Long Qingxia's path, eyes blazing with fury. With a dreadful look in his eyes, Long Qingxia said coldly, "Step aside. Your companion killed 2 of my students, and yet you want to flee just like this? Do you really think I'm just a foil? Today, I'm going to take the lives of both of you to compensate for the loss of my students. Seeing that Long Qingxia wanted to flee, Wu Qin became more convinced that it had been Yun Wu who had killed Gu Qin and Xianyi. In extreme anger, he wielded the sword in his hand with Tier 7 late-stage strength flaring up around him, hurling a surge of earth elemental power towards Long Qingxia. At this moment, Long Qingxia felt that the constriction in the heart was getting increasingly intenser. This indicated that Yun Wu was in a life-threatening situation. "Get out of my way!" After Wu Qin blocked his path, a furious and sanguinary look almost instantly appeared in Long Qingxia's deep eyes. "You'll die here," Wu Qin thundered. "You're courting death." Long Qingxia's voice was chilly. With a cold yell of anger, a tide of potent energy rose in him, and then an intangible compressive force smashed against Wu Qin, throwing him away. Wu Qin heavily crashed against a big tree behind him and broke one of his ribs, feeling a sharp pain in the back. He raised his head, eyes full of astonishment. So powerful. He's actually stronger than me." A ghost of fear rose in Wu Qin's heart. But then he recalled that 2 of his students had been killed and that 3 other students were still watching him. If he cowered on this occasion, how was he supposed to face all the people in Mighty King Warrior Academy in the future? The look in his eyes became cold again. Clenching his teeth with suppressed pain, he stood up. Before Long Qingxia left, with a sudden move of his body, Wu Qin blocked Long Qingxia's path again. "You'll have to give me an explanation before you leave." "Explanation?" Long Qingxia's voice was extremely cold. Impatiently giving a twist of his hand, he produced a crimson sword. "Your deaths will the best explanation." As soon as he finished the last word, at lightning speed, he swung the crimson sword at Wu Qin with a surge of energy that looked like both raging billows and burning flames. Tier 8 peak stage? He's a Tier 8 peak stage master? At this moment, Wu Qin's face went ashen and all his anger and concerns of face vanished. Wu Qin hurriedly dodged aside, but he forgot that his 3 students were behind him not far away. Pooh, pooh, pooh. They were slashed apart, blood spurting around. His ethereal white coat was also stained with several drops of blood, like a couple of red seductive flowers blooming on it. "No!" Wu Qin reacted, yelling in shock. But it was too late. The 3 trainees hadn't been standing side by side, but they were still halved from the top of their heads under that eccentric swordsmanship. Blood dyed the ground red. In white, Long Qingxia coldly watched the bloody scene with a sanguinary look on his face. A chilly, eerie ruthlessness rose in him. Like an incarnation of a devil, he stepped over the 3 bloody corpses and quickly disappeared into the depths of the forest. Coming around from shock, Wu Qin gave himself up to grief and wish for death. He had brought 6 students here. Now 5 of them had been killed, and the last one's whereabouts stayed unknown. How was he supposed to explain himself to the academy? Provoked by grief and rage, the elemental power in him started fluctuating so violently that he couldn't help spitting out a mouthful of blood. He had literally spat blood due to being unduly furious. In the depths of the forest, being Disley, Yunwu barely had any time to react when her body got entangled by the giant snake tail. The tail tightened its grip, and Yunwu felt that her body was about to be crushed by it. Pain caused by the hard compression of her internal organs. Hiss. The ironclad snake didn't devour her right away. Ever since it caught her, it had been lifting her up in the air and shaking her, tightening its tail. Just like a cat would always play around with the mouse after catching it. Seeing that Yunwu could barely breathe under the squeezing and was letting out muffled groans in pain, it was very excited. Hiss, hiss. It seemed to be enjoying her grimace of pain, but it also seemed to be sneering, mocking her. Yes, these human expressions glinted in its eerie, brutish eyes. Sneering at her? Yunwu was rather annoyed, but she was now entangled by its gigantic body and could barely breathe under the compressive force, let alone move. Shit, how the hell did I let myself end up in this situation? No, she should say. How far did this ironclad snake want to push her? Hiss. That tail which had been shaking her finally stopped, and it fixed its eerie eyes on her, flicking the scarlet tongue. But all of a sudden, that yellow crown on its head started glaring. It was shiny yet gave her a blood-curdling sense of horror. Was it going to break through into Tier 5? Right at this moment, its scary, oversized mouth, from which the tongue was flicking, suddenly opened wide, and it moved its tail, planning to devour Yunwu with its hideously fanged mouth. It turned out that the reason why it had been playing around with her was because it wanted to wait for this moment of breakthrough to come. Damn it, does it want to use me to celebrate its breakthrough? No wonder. No wonder it had been pursuing her all along from the very beginning yet hadn't killed her with its poisonous fog. Anger rose in Yunwu, extreme anger. She had survived more than 10 years torturing of Potion, as well as cannibal vines and python nest. Now she was facing only one ironclad snake. How could she just yield and die in its mouth? She felt a sudden surge of fury. When her internal organs were in great pain under the compression, she clenched her teeth and gathered all her strength. Totally indifferent to her struggling, the ironclad snake opened its giant mouth and sent her directly towards it. Foul breath shrouded her. The hideous, oversized mouth was so close to her. At this moment, a bizarre magenta light appeared Yunwu's cold and angry eyes, yet all her fighting force seemed to have vanished in this second. Yunwu's face abruptly changed. What's going on? Suddenly, in her meridians where strength had disappeared, a tempestuous surge of strange chi soared up out of nowhere. Right after that, it violently rushed into her dantian and a tearing pain exploded in her like it was about to cause a fire and burn her up. What is this? Yunwu was at an utter loss. She just felt terribly achy all over as if something in her body had been expanding in her and was about to erupt. At this time, that necklace at her throat suddenly gave off a black light. As if it had been woken up, the old voice said, "You actually awoke the sorcery power?" Sorcery power? What sorcery power did I awake? At this time, the only thing that Yunwu knew was that her whole body ached and that a stream of very angry chi had gathered in her chest. Ah! Suddenly, an earth-shaking roar issued from her throat continuously, but at the same time, Yunwu's herd violently lurched, because she saw with her own eyes that the ironclad snake, which had been coiling around her, was abruptly engulfed and instantly burnt to ashes by an intangible black fire. However, what she didn't know was that right at the moment when her roar broke forth, in the sky above the whole Shinjo continent, wind started blowing and clouds started gathering. The sky was full of dark clouds, and the whole continent was shrouded in total darkness. This sudden change startled a lot of people who were hiding themselves. They raised their heads and looked up into the black sky, horror bubbling beneath the surface of their minds. The sorcery power between the heaven and the earth actually woke up. How did this happen? Didn't the sorcery tribe disappear more than 10 years ago? In the main palace of the imperial harem of Zhou dynasty. Crack! A cup was crushed by a hand. In the next second, with a sudden body movement, the figure lying on the bed rushed out of the palace, raising her head to look at the black sky covered by dark clouds. After a sudden change of her face, a sepulchral, hideous look instantly appeared on Xue Lu's beautiful face. Sorcery power? Someone actually awoke the sorcery power? There was a tinge of bitter anger in her shrill voice. My queen, the source seems to be in the magic beast's forest in the north. Nobody knew when he had arrived, but a man dressed in black clothes and black robe was standing quietly behind Xue Lu. After a sinister look flashed across Xue Lu's eyes, she flicked her hand and threw a jade token at him. Send some men there immediately. No survivors. Yes, I'll do it right away, the man in black answered coldly. After a short while, the dark clouds in the sky lifted quickly and it was bright again. That man in black seemed to have vanished at his original position. At this time, Xue Lu had also put on her usual air of a noble queen. A gentle voice was heard. Little pair, I'm going to the mansion of General Yun. Ready the carriage. Yes, my queen. An eunuch bowed and hurriedly ran out of the palace. In the magic beast's forest, the moment the roar stopped, Yunwu feebly fell to the ground as if all her strength had been drained. How do you feel, girl? With a ghost of concern tinged with surprise, the old voice came from the necklace. I'm so tired. Yunwu barely had enough strength to raise a finger. Of course, this was the first time that you have woken up the sorcery power, yet you released all of them at once. You were very lucky to have not disabled yourself, the old voice said slightly resignedly. Hearing this, Yunwu was eager to ask him about what had happened exactly, but she was too feeble to do that. You over-fatigued yourself. Just have a rest and then you'll be fine. When the voice was saying this, a faint black light came out of the necklace and penetrated into her body with a fine stream of warmth, and then her body in prostration regained part of its senses. Elder White, what happened to me? Feeling that her strength started coming back, Yunwu asked, lying on her back. The sun was setting to the west, which indicated that the night was about to fall. The setting sun? There are exuberant tall trees everywhere in Magic Beast's forest. Why am I seeing the setting sun? She blinked and turned her head aside. When she saw the situation around her, Yunwu gasped deeply. My God! In 100 meters around her, all living things had turned into ashes. The area was completely bare. With every wind, dust and sand swirled. Girl, the sorcery power which has just woken up in you did this. Your body hasn't revived yet, but it activated the sorcery power in you. You really surprised me. There was amazement in the old voice. I did this? But she had just felt that her whole body was in pain, and that a breath was being held back in her chest, so she let it out. This is called sorcery power? But why do I have sorcery power? Eyes sweeping around, Yunwu was astounded. At the same time, she secretly mobilized her energy and tried to check her dantian, only to find that there was indeed a stream of weird qi in her meridians. But it was faint, and it seemed as if she wouldn't be able to find it if she didn't try hard to detect it. It seemed that there was only a very small proportion of it left in her body. Elder White hadn't been helping her regain her strength all along. He had stopped when she was just a little better, so Yunwu's body was still in prostration. It gradually got dark. She had failed to get an internal dan of Chilean snake, and she was in prostration, so it would be very unwise for her to travel in the forest. As a result, before the sun completely sank below the horizon, Yunwu started retracing the previous route of that ironclad snake, planning to spend the night in its nest. Elder White, you're an elf of Sorcery Tribe's sacred items, so you must know of the Sorcery Tribe, don't you? On her way to the nest, Yunwu couldn't help recalling something, so she asked. Of course I do. But if you were referring to the current Sorcery Tribe, then I don't know about it either and I can't answer your question. Then what was the prior Sorcery Tribe like? What kind of power is that sorcery power? And why do I have this so-called sorcery? Yunwu took advantage of this opportunity and spilled out all her questions. Usually, no matter what she asked this old man, he would either say that he couldn't answer her because she had no bond with him, or fall asleep. Today he was so willing to answer her questions, so she seized this opportunity. Elder White paused for a while, then said, You little girl, are you trying to fish for information from me? Tell me, please. I've already found a way to revive my body anyway, and it's only a matter of time before I bond myself to the sacred item. Do you think you can forge the bond whenever you want? That's easy for you to say. Though Elder White said these words, there was a tinge of amusement in his tone. This girl had managed to wake him up after he slept for over 1,000 years, so he naturally hoped that she would be able to forge a bond with the sacred item. In that case, he wouldn't have to stay in the necklace all the time, and he at least could go outside for a stroll. Are you saying that there are some other requirements apart from reviving my body? Yunwu frowned. This bond was so tricky, but this was the only way to become a summoner, so no matter what requirements there were, she would fulfill all of them. Of course, there are requirements, but I can't tell you for the moment. As regards those questions you asked, maybe I can give you some information. Yunwu's eyes lit up. That would be better than giving her nothing. Then tell me. The Sorcery Tribe is an offshoot of the Ancient Immortals. All members of the Sorcery Tribe possess powers that ordinary people cannot imagine, and sorcery power was one of them. The reason why you have it is because half of your blood is Sorcery Tribe blood, so it's very normal that you have sorcery power in you. An offshoot of immortals? I'm half sorcery tribe? Yunwu was a little surprised, but this hadn't gone far beyond her expectation. She had a sacred item of sorcery tribe on her. She had been born with memories. Her body was dead, yet she could still bleed and feel pain like normal people could. If she had sorcery tribe blood on her, then it would explain everything. However, if so, then it would suggest that her natural mother was a member of the sorcery tribe. But why would a member of sorcery tribe who had power unimaginable to common people marry a mortal and be his concubine? However hard she tried, Yunwu still couldn't figure this out. But she did figure out one thing. The queen must have some kind of relation with the sorcery tribe, and the reason why she had tried to poison her must have something to do with her natural mother. But where had her natural mother gone? Had she been caught? Had she returned to sorcery tribe? Or had she been killed? It seemed that she would have to pay a visit to this queen of Zhou dynasty if the occasion arose. Yet at this time, Elder White resumed his talking. But I have detected your body before, and I found that the sorcery power in you is very thin. It shouldn't have been aroused, but previously you had awoken the purest sorcery power between the heaven and the earth. It was so strange that a half-breed like you could have awoken sorcery power that was so pure. While making these remarks, Elder White himself gradually felt that was indeed very weird. But Yunwu, who had been listening to him, felt somewhat unconvinced. What's wrong with being a half-breed? In modern times, people of mixed race are the most popular, okay? Night fell. Finally, in prostration, Yunwu made it to the nest of that ironclad snake. It was just a fairly large cave. There was no grass concealing the entrance of the cave, and there was no sign of any other magic beasts nearby the cave. It seemed that this area was like that ironclad snake's exclusive backyard. After taking a legendary luminous pearl out of the storage space, Yunwu walked into the cave. The cave was pretty deep, but Yunwu eventually chose a position near the entrance, because that rank smell in the air deep in the cave was the same as that of the snake, and she found it unbearable. It was late at night. Guh Lulu. The sound of her stomach rumbling was heard in the cave. Yunwu, who had been sitting cross-legged and performing qi circulation, finally opened her eyes. She stroked her stomach resignedly. I'm starving. She hadn't had anything for a full day, and her body was in severe prostration. She felt as if the gap between her chest and her back had been considerably narrowed. But Long Qingxia had all the food that she had previously prepared. Long Qingxia, where the hell are you? You said that you would find me. Do you know what time it is? Long Qingxia had said that he could sense her position, but it had been a full day, yet he was nowhere to be seen. Yunwu couldn't help looking into the outside of the cave with a frown on her face. However, what she didn't know was that the blood connector he had planted in her body had been erased the moment sorcery power woke up in her. Originally, Long Qingxia had been rapidly coming for her. At the time when the blood connector was erased, his face drastically changed. The disappearance of blood connector meant the death of its host. But he didn't believe that she would have died so easily, because she was the woman that he had fell for. And how is it possible that the woman he had fell for would kick the bucket so easily? But without the help of blood connector, his search for her was completely aimless, just like trying to find a needle in an ocean. At present, in the darkness, that white figure was still persistently searching for her. Jingle, after midnight. Yunwu, who had been in a light sleep, abruptly opened her eyes. What was that sound? Jingle. Yunwu waggled her ears. Then she suddenly turned her head back and looked at the depths of the cave where the source of the sounds was. The cave was ablaze with the light of the legendary luminous pearl. Yunwu stood up, followed the sound, and slowly walked towards the depths of the cave. She had already checked the cave, and there shouldn't be any other creatures in it. However, Yunwu had barely arrived at the depths of the cave when a brilliant, colorful light was emitted from a hidden corner. The light was so strong that it dazzled her. What the hell is this thing? After about more than 10 seconds, the intense light finally became subdued. It was at this moment that Yunwu saw clearly that in the hidden corner there was a black fruit tree with trunk as thick as a fist. And the sources of those flickering lights were 7 fruits yielded by the tree. All the 7 fruits were about the size of a mulberry, and each of them had its own respective color different from that of the others. There was actually a plant in the nest of an ironclad snake. Every time the ironclad snake breathed, it would spew out poisonous fog, so there was no plants around its cave at all. Unexpectedly, at the depths of its nest, there was a small fruit tree. However, at this very moment, in this cave filled with foul odor, 7 different faint fragrances given off by those fruits were smelled. The frog races were so tempting that they had given Yuanwu a good appetite after she took only one sniff. Was it because she was too hungry? Yuanwu swallowed a mouthful of saliva and subdued an urge to pick the fruits. Immediately, she mobilized her consciousness and established a connection with the soaring dragon scroll, planning to find out what the tree was. When the soaring dragon scroll failed to offer her any information about them, a flicker of amazement crossed Yuanwu's eyes. No record? How come there was no record of it? Soaring Dragon Scroll documented everything on the Shenzhou continent. If there's no record about this tree in Soaring Dragon Scroll, then what the hell is it? Girl, what's this smell in the air? At this time, Elder White's voice was heard. I don't know either, Elder White. Look, what do you think is that? Yunwu hurriedly pointed at the small black tree in the corner. It was silent in the necklace. Elder White seemed to be contemplating. After a while, Elder White said in a slightly apologetic tone, "It looks very familiar, but I'm too old to recall it. Even Elder White doesn't know? But, girl, this odor is very weird. It may attract a tide of beasts here. You'd better think about what you should do next." A tide of beasts? What's a stream of beasts? Yunwu was surprised. At this time, roar, roar, roar. The roars of magic beasts came over from a distance. Before long, all the magic beasts in this area seemed to have become excited. Ripples of roars spread through the whole forest. Judging by the sound, it seemed that a lot of magic beasts were already on their way to this cave. Haven't the frog races started spreading just now? How come it caused such a fuss so soon? Damn, what variety of fruit tree is this? Yunwu was speechless with resignation, but soon, she took a dagger and a golden flower pot out of the storage space, bent over and started digging the little black tree. What are you doing, girl? Dig it up and take it with me. Even the Soaring Dragon Scroll and Elder White have no idea what this is, so it must be something uncommon. I have to take this good stuff before leaving. After transplanting the tree into the flower pot, Yunwu focused her attention on it and neatly sent that little fruit tree into her storage space. The fruit tree went in smoothly, but the 7 fruits of different colors failed to enter and fell onto her palm. Girl, these fruits contain very powerful elemental origins. The level of your bracelet storage space is too low to be able to contain them. You might as well throw them away. As long as you have the tree, you will have another chance. Throw them away? That'll be such a waste. Yunwu frowned. Roar, roar outside. The roars of those flocks of magic beasts were getting clearer. Yunwu frowned. Suddenly, a crazy idea flashed across her mind. Elder White, what if I eat these fruits? These fruits contain powerful elemental origins. If you manage to absorb them after ingesting the fruits, you will gain the power of those origins. But you're absolutely not ready for this, girl. You won't be able to survive that. Not with your current physical conditions, Elder White said in a deep voice. But right after he finished the last word, Yunwu raised her head and swallowed the 7 fruits of different colors in her hand at once. Girl, are you insane? Elder White said in consternation. Yunwu actually gave a crazy laugh. Elder White, there's no need for you to be so startled. You've seen me being crazy before. Besides, you said it yourself. If I manage to absorb it, I'll get the power of origins. The premise is your body can endure it. With your current strength, the power of those fruits is far beyond your tolerance. And you swallowed the 7 of them at once. Were you trying to burst yourself? Elder White, you forgot that my body is already dead. What else can possibly make it die a second death? Girl, do you know that you may end up directly turning into ashes? Even so, I won't regret doing this. That was true. She wouldn't regret it, because she was gambling, and the stake was her life. If she won, she would be the biggest winner, and if she lost, she would die. Actually, Yunwu had understood one thing the moment she came to this exotic world. And that was, if she was to survive in this world, she must be more powerful than those who wanted her dead. Otherwise, she would have to drag out an ignoble existence. As long as she was still breathing, she would do whatever she could to stand on the top of the pyramid, and she would never allow anybody to bully her. This was not high-handedness, and it was not wild arrogance either. This was her principle and her pride that she could not live without. So with this opportunity before her, she had chosen to seize it, even if it meant that she might perish. After hearing Yunwu's words, Elder White became silent. Maybe at that moment he was shocked by the pride in her, or maybe he was infected by her mood. At this time, energy started churning in her body. A stream of aggressive boiling power rampaged in her meridians, approaching her heart. Letting out a muffled groan, Yunwu clenched her teeth tightly. Cold sweat emerged on her forehead, and her breath became painful and unbearable. "It is the fire origin." Elder White's voice sounded rather anxious. "Fire origin? It seems that something's happening, but it is too fierce." After a moment, in the cave, the painful scream had just died away when that figure covered by fire leaped upwards and violently impacted upon the wall, as if this was the only way to alleviate the burning pain. Pain. Severe pain. Her whole body was engulfed by flame, and all her clothes had been burnt. In darkness, the cave was glaring with light of blazing fire, as if it was the flame mountain. All plants around it were scorched, the nearby ground parched and cracked. Roar, those numerous beasts, which had been drawn to the cave, were scared away by the heat as soon as they approached the cave. She felt as if she had been through the pains of being burnt by fire, cut by saber, drowned by water, drilled by pointed stick, buried alive as well as struck by lightning. These torturing pains seemed endless. How long has it been? Yunwu couldn't remember. She only remembered pains, indescribable pains. Every time a certain type of torture was about to subside, she would think that all this was over, only to find that before she could take a breath, another torture of a different type had just begun. Just like at this moment, electrical current had just disappeared in her body. A weird force started tearing and twisting her blood vessels and entrails. Even the so-called hell couldn't have been worse than the situation Yunwu was in. Yunwu felt that she had become numb, and she wouldn't roll even if the pain was as unbearable as that caused by slowly cutting off her flesh piece by piece. She lay on the ground, breathing painfully with parched lips and crimson eyes. Foul blood was oozing out of her skin, which made her look so horrible that she seemed to have just crawled out of rank blood. However, right at this moment, 5 giant flying mounts circled above the magic beast's forest. Their speed changed from time to time as if they were searching for something. "Lord Jean, we're already above the middle of the magic beast's forest. We'll have to walk if we go any deeper into it." There were 2 people on each flying mount's back, and at this time, on the back of one of the flying mounts, a middle-aged man in black said respectfully to the old man in a brocade robe who was leading the way. If they kept going deeper into the forests, they might attract the attention of some high-level flying beasts, which would get themselves into some big trouble. Frowning, Jinlong said in a deep voice, "Go a little deeper, and if the jade token still doesn't detect anything, then we'll walk." "Yes." The other 9 people all answered respectfully. They had been searching this forest for 3 full days, but the magic beast's forest was so vast that it was very difficult to find someone. They had a jade token which could detect their target, but they still needed to get close enough. But the flying mounts had just flown a little further. "Lord Jean, look." The jade token seems to have detected something. A man in black with sharp eyes discovered that the jade token fastened to his belt was giving off a black light. "It seems that our target is nearby. Go down and find him." With a severe look in his eyes, Jinlong said in a deep voice and then immediately leaped down from the flying mount. Seeing this, the other 9 people also leaped down swiftly. Sha-sha. 10 figures quietly landed on the ground like 10 swallows. If anybody had seen this scene, they would surely have been startled. They had jumped down onto the ground from such high positions yet managed to land without making any sounds. There was no doubt that they were all King Fu experts. It was rather dark in the magic beast's forest, which made the black light given off by the jade token fastened to Jinlong's belt more noticeable. The target is right ahead of us. Move. Hardly had his voice died away when the 10 figures dashed towards the cave where Yunwu was like greased lightning. All the areas around the cave were bare. The ground dried and seamed, and all the plants withered. When the 10 figures rapidly arrived at their destination, they all frowned on the sight of it. What an eerie place. Lord, judging by the reaction of the jade token, the target should be in that cave. Go in there and take a look. In the cave, Yunwu was in great pain as if she was being sawed by a saw and being twisted at the same time. What was weird was that she detected the 10 people as soon as those people arrived. Girl, those people out there have very intense killing aura, and they seem to have evil intents. At this time, Elder White's fairly weak voice was heard. He had been trying to protect her cardiovascular meridian for 7 days and was somewhat exhausted. Panting heavily, Yunwu clenched her teeth and struggled to prevent herself from making any sounds. She could feel that she was almost there. There was only a small distance between her and success, a very small one. She just needed a small extra amount of time. However, those uninvited guests had no intentions to give her any time. They had barely arrived at the entrance of the cave when a sickening stench of blood assailed their nostrils. When they saw clearly Yunwu, who was in the cave, caked in blood clots, there was a flicker of surprise in all their eyes, and then they all felt disgusted. Lord Jean, this guy looks a little disgusting. It should be the one we've been looking for. An old man in black beside Jean Long said, frowning. This old man was the leader of the 8 assassins in black behind him. Jean Long slightly squinted his eyes and said coldly, there's never been any error in the Jade Token's reaction. This is our target. The Queen's order is that we eliminate the target as soon as we find it. After they heard his words, killing intents glinted in their eyes. Without any hesitation, they squarely stabbed their swords at Yunwu. The Queen? It was that Queen yet again? Yunwu was lying on the ground, unable to move. Watching those swords stabbing directly at her, she was absolutely furious and resentful. But currently she was totally powerless to fight back. All she could do was merely watching her enemies attack on her. She was furious and unreconciled. All of a sudden, whoever dares to touch her, I'll kill them. An angry yell had just died away when an aggressive power surged up in the air and parried those swords jabbing at Yunwu. The 10 people were startled and failed to react in time. Pop! An upsurge of earth elemental power in the air stormed towards them. Having collected themselves, the 10 people instantly leaped backwards out of the cave. Manipulation of earth element. A trace of sharpness flashed across Jean Long's eyes the moment he landed. Only those who had broken through into Tier 6 were able to manipulate earth element. Whose did this? However, right at this moment, a white figure directly leaped down onto the ground in front of the entrance of the cave. His clothes were white tinged with yellow, as if he had been wearing them for days, but they didn't compromise his intrinsic sultriness and weird enchantment at all. You dared to hurt my woman. Did you ask me for permission first? The corner of Long Qingxia's lips curved into a smile, yet his deep black eyes glinted with exceptionally cold anger. Long Qingxia? It's him. He finally showed up? In the cave, Yunwu's heart lurched the moment she saw that figure, and for the first time she felt relieved. With his presence, she actually felt that she could rest assured. Tiny, are you okay? Long Qingxia gave a glance over his shoulder at the cave behind him, and his heart lurched abruptly when he saw that figure caked with blood clots. What happened to her? In the past few days he had looked everywhere in the central part of this forest, and originally he had planned to search the depths of it, but then he encountered these people, eavesdropped on them, and learned that they were looking for someone, so he followed them. He hadn't expected that they had been assigned here by the Queen to kill Yunwu. Buy me some time. Don't let them disturb me. Yunwu's weak hoarse voice came. Long Qingxia nodded, a flicker of coldness crossing his eyes. Rest assured. I got this. At this moment, looking at silver-haired Long Qingxia, who looked eccentrically sultry, Jean Long and the others coldly narrowed their eyes. Who are you? You dared to get in our way. You're courting death. Death? Haha. It's a natural thing for foes to try to kill each other when they meet. Foes? Jean Long squinted at him. Long Qingxia's eyes swept across those 10 people and the corner of his lips curved. a Tier 9 middle stage warrior, 9 Tier 8 peak stage assassins. It seems that the queen made quite an investment this time. Hearing this, Jinlong Qingxia's face clouded over. You can sense our strength? They hadn't made any moves yet, but he could see through them? How hard can it be to see your strength? I can even see the exact attribute of every one of you. So what do you say? Do you want me to name them one by one? You really know how to bluff, kiddo. Tell me, who are you? The old man in black said in a cold, deep voice. Like I said, your foe. Just do some careful thinking and see if you offended anyone before. Maybe you'll recall something, Long Qingxia said in a languid tone. Someone I offended? The old man in black was actually contemplating. But at this moment, Jinlong suddenly smiled wryly. You're pretty good, kid. You know how to use conversation as a delaying tactic. Hearing this, a cold look appeared in the eyes of the old man in black. So you're trying to delay us? It seems that you have no idea who you're dealing with. No. 5. No. 7. Finish him as quick as you can and bring me his head. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.